All right, well, I said I wanted to do a show on the demonic, and the reason I'm 5 minutes late is I just had another one of those very strange things happen. I did something really weird with my mouse, and then all of a sudden my window where I get to talk to you guys is completely blown out, and your chats are already coming in. Thank you for that. Super chats are very much appreciated today. We're still in the middle of a very biblical situation in my life. You know, we're waiting for things to happen. We do have some very exciting news. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but we have at least one order from a country in Africa, which we now have signed purchase orders for. So this is very exciting for us. It is, of course, a peaceful country in Africa. So don't get all freaked out about it. You know, this is a normal thing for us to do. I had a little extra taste for you on this circle here. As you may see, there's a little extra symbolism in there. You said, love you, David. We love you too. And that is, you know, the whole team of Archangel Michael, David, and Gurley. We're all working together. So, man, I've been through like so much stuff I can't even tell you guys. In fact, we'll go to that slide. I'm wiped out after going through 2 biblical emergencies in my own life. So I didn't really want to do a show today, but once again, it's like there's mitigating circumstances. The conditions in the world, you know, really would be well served by me having something to talk about today. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. I'm going to step up to the plate once again, despite the fact that I was threatened in a very, very phenomenal, grandiose way. Many people would probably want to retreat after that. I did not. I'll show you what that was. It's really shocking. That's coming up early in the show. But again, the main point of the show here is I want to talk about the principles of positive and negative entities. When we start to understand the universal cosmology as it comes in from the law of one, we have a universe that is a sentient universe, and it's conscious. And that's all there really is awareness. It's so funny. A friend of mine who I'm working with and is also on the Stavati Board of Directors was really trying to get into this philosophical argument with me the last time we were on the phone. He's saying, well, if there's an intelligence that created the universe, then where did it come from? And what was going on before that? I'm like, well, the law of one kind of says that somebody says your volume's all the way up and it's a bit hard to hear. There's really nothing I can do about that during a live stream. Everybody kind of has that complaint. If I tried to crank up the volume now, it's going to be bad. So just crank up your volume, and then I'll probably, I am doing a nice high fidelity recording here, so we can do that too. Leanne Boudreau, thank you, David, for all your transforming works, and blessings to all the readers. Thank you, Leanne. We appreciate that. So, yeah, we're in a situation where there are a lot of spiritual influences out there. They're both positive and negative, and it's important to be able to understand how both sides are operating. And this is a very, very big discussion that goes into great depth in the Law of One material, which, as you probably know, is my spiritual source material that I've spent so much time looking at. So in this case, what we're interested in is how the Law of One is going to teach us about what negative entities are and what's actually the best way to prevent them. And it does involve a little bit of hard work on your part. But again, I don't expect this to be a long show. It's probably, I'm going to try to keep it to 90 minutes or less. And part of it is just that I want to get you familiar with some basic concepts that you can then go home with, or if you're already home, you know, you can take these after the show and begin applying them immediately. You could immediately today lower the amount of negative influence. And I'm going to be connecting some dots for you in the typical David Wilcock fashion, which many people have come to appreciate, hence the popularity. We're just about to hit 500,000 subscribers. Can you believe that? So I never say this, but please subscribe and click the bell and the like button. We're so close that we just need a few more and it's all going to be good. So we got 2,169 people watching right now. This was a last minute show. I really didn't want to do this, but, and again, I'm wiped out after these biblical emergencies that I've been through. And this included pretty much back to back going through 5 feet of snow, and then had a little bit of time off. Angelo Munoz, thank you. And after the time off, we got into this thing where there was a crazy, freakish windstorm that came to my entire area that started on Saturday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning and then carried through until Monday, really. There was still wind by Monday, but it stopped kind of in Sunday right after I would have done a show was when the worst of it stopped. But the wind started on Friday, and this was leading right up to the eclipse on Monday. So my experience with the eclipse was not like most people's eclipse. I was in a total fight to the death with nature survival situation in this, again, blackout. That the total emergency, the blackout didn't last that long, but the total emergency lasted 4 days. And the eclipse was on Monday. So during the eclipse, I was actually worried about whether I was going to have enough solar power to run my refrigerator, because I was running my refrigerator off of a portable solar kit. I do at some point want to talk about this and make a video that shows you the footage of these things, like what does 5 feet of snow look like when you're shoveling a path for your dog through 5 feet of snow. What does that look like? It's going to blow your mind. One of the cool things was that the snow kept getting shorter in height because of weight. It would collapse on itself, so the heights never really got about more than 4 feet. But that was still really bad. And so I actually shoveled from 3:45 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the day that the snow was really coming down. And my dog left this huge 7-foot ring of poop on the carpet in the middle of the night when I woke up at 3:45 a.m. So I had to clean that first because she was so scared, because we went outside and 7 inches of snow had come down in like 1 hour. It was just so crazy. The feeling of fear that I had in this snowstorm was so intense. We had lost our power already in a previous snow event, and it happened all right during when I had one of my board meetings, so I couldn't be there for the board meeting. But this was like this massive snow accumulation. And I got up at 3:45, and the first thing I had to do was make sure I could get out my side door. I already had, from the snow falling off the roof, like a 5.5-foot tall wall of snow. And I had to bust through that with a shovel. And I had to carve a trail just to my garage. You know, if you've seen my videos, the garage is pretty close by. So Diane Molt, thank you. So here we are, going through this, and I had to dig all day, and I finally collapsed, and then our plow guy has all this trouble, and he can't make it over. And so there's all this crazy stuff going on. It was incredibly terrifying. And during this snowfall, I was completely snowed in and unable to leave my house for a week. We only lost power during the board meeting for 3 hours, but right during the time I was supposed to have my board meeting. So that came back on, but I mean, I was out there shoveling all day, every day. I'm happy to say that I've had a significant improvement in how my body looks. It's more superhero looking now, and I've done so much shoveling. I'm really actually impressed by the results I got from just regular, ordinary farm labor type of stuff. But that's true. Everything's more cut. It's really nice. So, but I had to go through this. I didn't have a choice. And I was trapped in here for a week. The plow guy finally got here with a gigantic machine that was 65,000 pounds. 65,000 pound machine with these 4-foot tall wheels. It was called a grader, but I've never seen anything like it except on a highway. Like, Ohio UFOs, thank you. Did you see the 2 spheres come out for you in my YouTube clip? I don't know, but thank you for the donation. I guess I don't usually see YouTube very much. I'm so busy surviving this kind of crap that I'm talking about. I'm going to make a video, and so I think you're going to see pretty decent footage of the whole thing, but it was horrible. And I was trapped in here for a whole week, but thankfully I always expect that, so I had plenty of vegetables, plenty of food, and I have tons and tons of bottled water of the highest quality. We get it around here in the area. So it's spring water, and it's very, very good. When you're up at this high of an altitude, the water just goes right from the glacier through hardly any sediment, and it goes up through these underground quartz tubes and it comes right out through the well. It's the best water in America. It's right here where I live. So we have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and I'm very proud of that. You know, it's really nice to live in such a healthy area. There's hardly any Wi-Fi. There's hardly any cell towers. So and it's very healing for the soul and the body. So I think that part of why I've been able to do so well here is, you know, the house itself is like a pyramid. It's made out of wood, logs primarily, and there's hardly any metal in it. There's no metal in it, in fact, except for the roof itself. So I have an orgone box. I have a pyramid. And I've talked about in many other shows pyramid technology, that in Russia in the 1990s, Dr. Alexander Golod began building these pyramids out of PVC pipes and then faced them with fiberglass. And in this case, they were very steep. They're not like a typical Egyptian pyramid. But when he built these pyramids this way, what he found out was that they created incredible energy that seemed to have biologically healing effects on a dramatic level. One example is probably the most provocative is that he took a milliliter of water, ordinary water stored in the pyramid, and fed it to these premature born infants. And this was in a division of obstetrics and gynecology within the Russian National Academy of Sciences. So these Russian scientists were off of the Soviet Union. They still got their pensions, but they didn't have a war to fight anymore, so they started doing pyramid research. And they fed 1 milliliter of pyramid water to prematurely born babies who were written off for dead. And then other premature babies written off for dead were just given regular placebo, ordinary water. Every single one of the babies that was given the water that was stored in the pyramid survived. Every single one survived. Cancer cells that would normally infect at a rate of 60% went down to 6%, 30% went down to 3%. So it was pretty much knocking out cancer. There's all these different things, health problems, that it was seeming to do. Now, of course, these were claims that were published by Russian scientists. We can't prove it unless we were to duplicate these here in the US. And there's always been this kind of strategic bias that Russian science is not good science. And I've been dealing with this ever since I began publishing some of these fascinating results back in the 1990s. Some people just don't appreciate the nuances of having a whole different way of looking at the universe, which the Russians did. And as I've said many times, it primarily focused on the work of Dr. Nikolai Kozyrev, who coined the term torsion fields because they twist. And the basic idea, ultimately, from a whole lot of Russian physics put together, is that gravity is much more than just something that pushes us down on Earth. And it's not a pull of gravity, it's actually a push. Gravity is this flow of energy that's flowing into the Earth to make the Earth exist. So now you have to imagine it's flowing into the Earth equally from all directions. So the Earth is like a vortex, and it's like a black hole almost, and all this energy is flowing in. So the Russians concluded that gravity also has consciousness on it. Gravity is the carrier wave for consciousness. Einstein tried to do a unified field theory by thinking that everything comes back to light. And that's partially true, but as far as consciousness and mind, the Russians made fascinating discoveries about torsion fields. And in one example, Dr. Kozyrev had a torsion field detector that he had built. And what he found was that he could have a brick wall in the way, and then have the torsion field detector on one side of the brick wall, and then on the other side of the wall, you shake a weight up and down. And the torsion field detector would notice that and point towards the shaking, even if there's no shaking of the floor at all. By simply moving something in space, there's this ripple that is created that you can measure with these torsion field detectors. Now, what were the torsion field detectors? Well, they ranged from things like mercury thermometers. It turns out that the mercury will rise and fall a little bit more than the room temperature based on the presence of torsion fields. It turns out that he could vibrate a needle and have the needle hanging on a string, and you vibrate where the string is hanging off of, and then that needle becomes incredibly sensitive to torsion fields. So just a high vibration, and then the needle hangs down off of that. And the needle would also be a pendulum where it would have 10 grams on one side, 1 gram on the other side, so it's asymmetrical. That was another part of what made it work. So these were replicable laboratory experiments, and Western scientists go, oh, this is all BS, none of this is. Look, there's over 10, by the late 90s, there's over 10,000 papers on torsion fields, scientific papers published in Russia. And so what he found was that if plants started to die, that they would give off a torsion field. There was a torsion field that would make the needle move if you boiled water. There was a torsion field that would make the needle move at the moment that water froze and turned into ice. There was a torsion field that would make the needle move if you smashed something and broke it. So and again, it would work through a brick wall. And this was similar to the work of Dr. Viktor Grebennikov, who studied honeybees and found out that they would try to slam through the brick wall if their hive was on the other side. They could feel something coming off of their hive that went through the brick wall. And that's a huge discussion. Dr. Viktor Grebennikov. Maybe we'll do that one later. Right now, I want to talk about Dr. Nikolai Kozyrev. And again, I want to talk about his research into torsion fields. And so up until now, he found out you can burn something, you can break something, you can smash something. You create these funny ripples, and you can, get this needle to move. And it's definitely caused by the effect. Now, there was a problem also called latent vacuum structuring, which was that it would create a current in the ether, if you will, whatever this substance was that makes our reality, which is gravity, ultimately. It's like this fluid-like component that gravity is moving through that's just all around us. And so in this whole science, you get to learn how consciousness interfaces with this. That's where it gets so strange. He's finding all these things that are mechanical ways to cause torsion fields to form. You heat something up, you cool something down, a plant is dying, a plant is growing. The honeybee thing with the honeycomb hive will do that. But then, after he's built these needles and they're very well able to test things, one day he's reading The Temptation of Faust by Mephistopheles. This is the story about a demon appearing in front of Dr. Faust, and this was actually apparently a thinly laced disclosure of real events. If you read Manly Palmer Hall's epic classic, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, I didn't get into this in the Michael prophecies, but there's a part in Secret Teachings where Manly Palmer Hall talks about the fact that these demons do exist. I do get into it a little bit on page 100 or page C. He talks about how they can be brought up. And he said that the Faust story was actually based on an alchemist. So you don't really want to be an alchemist when you find out what alchemists are really doing, okay? They supposedly are summoning a golem. And I heard this for a long time, and I thought, oh, okay, they just supposedly have a clay sculpture that they make, and then they do some trick, and it becomes a little animated being. I didn't realize until now that there's this connection to magic, and especially like the wrong kind, and that's what that's really about. But then if you go to page C again in there, he shows you this image of Mephistopheles. It's the summoning of Mephistopheles, which is the most dangerous demon and the most ferocious demon. And it has this weird face. It's kind of like a human and a bear put together with these big eyes. And it's got bear claws on its hands and bear claws on its feet. So it's got basically bear limbs. But it's dressed up in a Shakespearean little dapper costume. And this is Mephistopheles. And apparently, as I've said before, when people are messing around with the wrong type of stuff, these creatures appear visibly to the people in the room. And so there's like this magic secret that our galaxy is built with, in which if you play around with this stuff, you're going to get very dramatic results. So in the same book, Secret Teachings, Manly Palmer Hall explains that the story of Mephistopheles is absolutely real because he's illustrating it to you in that picture that he's got. The whole idea of something coming in with sharp teeth and claws that's angry and aggressive is very scary, frankly. And that apparently is what's going on. So he said in there that Mephistopheles is not fiction, that the whole Faust story was loosely based on a real person. and that he actually had played around with this stuff, and he had made this agreement with this negative entity, with this creature called Mephistopheles. So this stuff might seem as if it's all really weird and out there, and that's okay. If you want to take this as a fantasy type of thing and not really feel anything more real about it, that's okay. But what I'm saying is that there are people who very firmly believe that when they play around with this, that they see things, and that there are then events that take place that wouldn't have happened because nobody else is there. Whatever this thing is, it's doing things by itself, and those events are real, and those events are affecting other people and their lives. Okay? So this thing can come in and torture you. I mean, that's absolutely part of what we're talking about. So this is a very, very interesting thing because, okay, well, if it works, if it really does work, then maybe that's where this story of Temptation of Faust came from. And then you got the story in the blues, the crossroads, right? You met the demon at the crossroads. Well, some people believe they have made these types of agreements, and that's actually very scary. We don't want that to happen. But if people are playing along with this, and if people think that this is true, then who knows what they might be doing. And that's the problem, is that they believe it's true whether you do or not. They don't care. They're just going to do their own thing, and they're going to do it their way. And, you can speculate as to what you want to think they means, but I already know. You probably know. And in fact, this whole event that just took place, I'm in 5 feet of snow, okay? We were talking about Nikolai Kozyrev. I don't want to lose track of that either. Let's get that done first. So Nikolai Kozyrev was reading this same story, the story of the Temptation of Faust by Mephistopheles. And he had spent time in a Russian gulag concentration camp. Remember, the Soviets were communist, and they were really jerks. One of the things they did, we got some big donations. Bonnie Brown, thank you. Ohio UFOs again, thank you. There they are. Zig it on by, and all right. Thank you very much. I actually, I do really need money right now, so that is so awesome. Thank you guys. And I will look at your video about the spheres. So there's a lot of stuff happening. Like the latest UFO sightings are now fleets of UFOs, and not just 1 or 2, but they're like all over the sky. And people are starting to post sightings of that around the world. So there's really interesting things going on. But anyway, getting back to Kozyrev, he was reading The Temptation of Faust, and he had been in the concentration camp gulags and had survived on hardly any food at all because the Russians imprisoned scientists and anybody that was doing anything spiritual or religious. So if you went to church, they were going to throw you in prison, throw you into concentration camp. If you were a scientist, they're afraid you're going to figure out what they're doing. They don't want you to be too smart, so they got to get rid of the scientists. So all the scientists had to go to the concentration camp. So this poor guy, Kozyrev, is already making these brilliant breakthroughs about binary stars and how they're fluctuating together, which becomes the key for understanding how 2012 solar flash did happen, but on Proxima Centauri. It actually happened on December 25th, 2012. There was a solar flash just like we were expecting, but it was over on Proxima Centauri. And it's Kozyrev's discovery that allows us to appreciate that fact, because he's the one that saw stars that were many light years apart fluctuating at exactly the same time, suggesting that a faster than light communication is occurring between them, which he ended up calling torsion fields. They do not move at light speed, they move much faster, and he could get them mechanically. And then as he's reading this book about the Temptation of Faust, he's thinking about being in the concentration camp, and he has this huge emotional surge. And then right at that moment, the needle, the torsion field detector, turned and pointed towards him. It pointed towards him. And he had the biggest trip out of his life. His whole body was shaking. His hands, fur standing up on your arms. It looks like fur now. Oh my God. That was the big moment in Kozyrev's life. That was the big turning point. That was when he realized that the energy fields that he had discovered could be generated mechanically, but they could also be generated by nothing other than the mind. The mind itself generated an energy field that would make the needle turn towards you if you had a sudden emotional surge. And this gets right back into many other things like orgone energy, the protege of Sigmund Freud, who came up with orgone. I'll think of his name in just a second. You can tell me in the sidebar. But this is really good stuff. You know, it's all coming together. And Kozyrev is showing us that there's this torsion field that's affected by the mind. So then this triggers this huge industry of Russian science that goes on for so long. And it leads to pyramids being built in the 1990s where they're capturing torsion fields. So again, torsion fields are the energy of consciousness. They ride on gravity. And what the pyramid does ultimately is it harnesses torsion fields and causes them to swirl in the middle. The word pyramid means fire in the middle. Pyre amid, fire in the middle. So that's what the word actually means. And it's because there's this swirling, if you can imagine like water going down a drain, there's a swirling current like a tornado. The pyramid creates that by its shape because the Russians discovered that everything has this fluid-like energy coming out of it, and there's energy flowing in to make the atoms, and there's energy that flows out. Okay, so this is a big deal. So yes, I did get injured. Somebody was noticing that. I did get injured over here on my eye. And so you can go and speculate whatever it is, but it's just, I actually tried to squeeze out something. I had this hard lump in there that had been in there for a long time. I tried to squeeze it, and then I ended up getting a baggy eye. So sorry if you don't like my face. It's going to heal up very soon, but this is, I would consider this an emergency situation. I wasn't going to do a show today, but now I am. So anyway, people can say whatever they like, and they always start with your appearance. They start at the lowest and work their way up. So yeah, there you go. I don't really care. Anyway, the point is, I'm trying to explain to you now that the reason why when he shakes this weight up and down, let's go back here, the reason why when he shakes this weight up and down that he gets this needle to turn is that as you shake the weight up and down, it's like you're underwater. And as you shake something underwater, you get this ripple. In fact, any movement through water automatically creates a donut, just like you see with dolphins when they do the little thing with their snout and they can make a little donut and they can keep it in the water and they play with it and stuff. Well, that's because any motion, any thrust moving through a liquid is going to create this toroidal shape. That's just what it does. That's natural physics. And it'll often round out into the size of a sphere. So these are these spherical toroidal fields. And one of the things Kozyrev discovered is that they stay there. If you build a torsion source, you will get this current that flows, and it will stay there after the source is taken away. So I got this torsion field generator. There's actually mechanical generators that you can use, and this is what they use to control the weather. If you have a torsion field generator, it's going to do a much better job of manipulating where the clouds go than anything else. So there's there's an Italian scientist named Pier Luigi Ighina, and he built a torsion field generator using the same type of stuff, same type of ideas. And when he turned it on, he could open up the clouds like it would be a circle, and they would just go whoop, and they just open up. So this is a technology that's very real. It's been kept very, very secret. It's not something you're usually going to hear about, but it has incredible ability to manipulate, control the weather. So when I'm going through this kind of stuff, and I know exactly what's going on, both of these storms came in and just like freaking wiped me out. I mean, the 5 feet of snow, I was trapped in here for a week. I had to have stored food. And then the eclipse is coming up, and I want to do a big show about that, and I talked about it. There's all this buildup around what's going to happen in the eclipse. I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff that's being disclosed. There's a lot of communications coming out about it that are very provocative. Well, I get this extremely high wind, like hurricane force wind, that starts on Friday. It gets really bad on Saturday. It gets so bad Saturday night that by 3 p.m., they turned the power off. And they say, oh, don't worry, we're going to turn it back on tomorrow afternoon. Well, they didn't turn it back on tomorrow afternoon. Why? Because we had surges of wind going up to 80 to 100 miles an hour. So we lost power. So if you don't have power, you can't heat your house. And this wind is like, 27 degrees. Fahrenheit, which means it's below freezing. 5-6 degrees below freezing. 5 degrees. So it's high wind, and that already I have a log home, so it blows through the cracks of the logs, because no matter what you do, you're going to have cracks in the logs. I had to retreat to the downstairs bedroom. It's literally right over here where I'm pointing. It's, if you go through this room and you walk right over there it is. That's the best place in the house to hide from this. It was so scary. The only other thing I can remember that was that frightening to me was being on a sinking ship with my brother on Lake George. And my father and his Italian buddy Rick had the sailboat. We went out there, and this freakish storm comes in while we're out there. And all of a sudden it's like rain, and it's storms, and it's thunder. And the boat is tipping so far over that my brother and I are standing on the wall, looking at our feet, which is now the window of the boat on the side. And we're seeing water in the window. I thought we were dead, man. I was screaming. My brother is screaming. And there's this funny thing that happens when you both think you're going to die, and you're kind of making eye contact with each other, but you're screaming at the same time. But you're just looking at each other as well, trying to understand what the hell is going. It was so crazy. This had that kind of vibe, dude. This was like, man, I just do not want to go through this. 3 o'clock, the power goes off. It starts getting cold by 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. I'm like, we got to get downstairs pretty soon. All I have is these 2 solar batteries, EF Deltas, which are fantastic. I'm not a sales representative or anything, but man, they got me through this. I only needed one of them too. I had 2 of them, but I only need one. So I had one of them fully charged, and I use it to run my electric heater downstairs. Thank God I had that, because it ran out at 3 o'clock in the morning. The room actually stayed warm though. But my God, I got out in the morning, I have no power, and I got to put on I already have my base layer, so I have thick wool undershorts and long sleeve shirt on that I sleep with. And I have a very thick wool socks, the thickest ones you can get. As soon as I wake up, I got to throw on ski pants for Mount Everest level skiing, and I got to throw on my winter jacket and my hat and my gloves to live inside my house. And then I got to starting a fire, and that was when things improved a little bit. I had to leave the doors open and just hope that enough heat is coming off of the fireplace without any blower running that it's going to warm up the house. And it actually did, and we were lucky enough to get sunlight. But the wind was so crazy. It was so loud. And, thankfully no trees came down, but I had to take all of my stuff off the porch and put it in the garage. And then it turns out that there's been this biblical amount of damage to the local electrical infrastructure. Really, really, really bad. Drama, I'm sorry, but I have a hard time figuring out where this is going. Look, you don't have to like the show, but this is all about negative greeting, okay? The topic is on demonic negative greeting, okay? So just bear with me. I could feel that one, I guess. But you're going to see where this is going, okay? Believe me, you're going to see where this is going. So after going through this experience, and psychopathic people are not going to want to hear me talk about bad things that happen to me because they don't have any empathy for me. They're only here to attack. So this kind of stuff they hate because they have to feel empathy for a while, and that hurts them inside. They don't like that. So I don't know if that's what's going on here, but it's just something that I've observed as a standard practice. Anyway, this was so insane because even after the wind had stopped, which it was mostly over by the next day, we're supposed to get the power back on at noon, and that didn't happen. The power stayed off for 2.5 more days. And so everybody lost all their stuff, and everybody was at the dump, so there was free garbage day at the dump. I took all my garbage over there on the free day. I really did. It's true. I saved about $6. It was amazing. So free garbage day because everybody lost all their groceries, but I didn't because I had this solar-powered backup generator with 360-watt panels feeding into this thing, so a total of 480 watts. Man, it kept my refrigerator going. And at night, the house was so freaking cold it didn't matter. I slept downstairs. But I have to say, this whole experience has changed me. Going through that blackout, facing that much fear. Again, I really didn't want to do a show today because this was so horrifying. This was so insane to just have to go to bed at night with nothing but an open pit fire that you then have to close. Your house is going to get freezing cold. You have to just surrender to that. You don't have any way to keep your room warm because you're not next to a fireplace. So you just have to sort of go with it. And thankfully, we were able to never get too cold. It never really got bad at all. In fact, the dog was comfortable. I was comfortable. We made it work. But I only got out of this thing a few days ago. So right through the middle of the Eclipse, I was in all this crap. I'm in a very survival situation. I had to wash my hands in the sink. And when you don't have any running water, which is what happened to me after a day and a half, I lost my running water because that battery only runs for a while. It's not hooked up to the generator. I can't get that done right now. So I lost running water. So I had to actually wash dishes in like a pot. I had to wash my hands in a pot. When you start living that way, you have no power. You're running your dishes are being run through like bottled water. I had prepared for this, so I had a 5-gallon jug of water that I kept by my sink, and I used that to wash my hands. It was so crazy. And I think, picking at my eye was something I did out of frustration afterwards. But anyway, this was all happening to me. This whole situation was happening to me in the middle of being publicly threatened by the DS like never before. And when I show you this, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. This was what was going on leading up to the eclipse. And I'll wait for the slides so it has the right amount of dramatic flair. But trust me, folks, this show is going to open up here. So if you're just like falling asleep, you're bored. Emily Howard says, could you get hot food? Our house can't do any heat. We have a gas generator. Oh, that's a great question, Emily. Thank you. Yeah, so when I was going through this, I did have the ability to run my gas stove. But because it's really dangerous to do that, I had to keep the windows open. So it's like this crazy situation where I had too much wind to use my outdoor propane grill, which is what I cook with quite a bit. So instead of using the outdoor grill, I had to use the indoor gas stove, but then I had to open up a window by the gas stove on one side and then open up a window on the other side of the house over by the fireplace and ventilate it that way. And so like I had hot dogs for breakfast. I boiled hot dogs and I had broccoli a lot. I didn't want to make a steak because it would be too much smoke. I did reheat cooked chicken thigh at one point. That worked pretty well. Deb Robertson says you can set a metal pot on top of a wood stove, heat water for your cooking and cleaning. I've done this many times. Yes, I am so into getting a standalone potbelly type wood stove, something like that now, because all I have is this inset fireplace, and if I had the wood stove, I would have been set. I would have had so much easier time. I mean, I burned an enormous amount of oak firewood to get through this. Oh, Linda Catone says, I'm not bored. This is good storytelling. Thank you. Non-psychopathic people hopefully feel that way. I went through a desperate situation. Lorraine Dalmore says this. With my family, I became terribly diseased on my skin, inflammation from being on fire with the horror of my situation. And somebody tells him, why don't you just sod off there? To the guy that insulted him. It's funny. Where is Colin? Love the comedy. I don't even have Colin's glasses today, mate. It's a problem, I admit. May I do? Yes, I've got one pair of Colin glasses made to order. If you so desire, then he shall appear. Okay, we got Colin glasses. The other ones I actually needed. I mean, I bought them because I wanted to look like that for a comedy skit, but then they're actually very useful glasses for me. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm 51 years old. I mean, what can you say? It kind of makes sense. Paulo Avilo, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, yes, Cindy Sims says you must get a wood stove. Curzon Dax says, my parents were always prepared for when modern living went awry. They started out life in poverty, so scary scenarios are always fun times when you get proven to be a true intellect. So yeah, I mean, I've been through some pretty cool stuff here. I've been through like surviving this, man, without even having a good wood stove to heat water. I did it with the stovetop. It was wonderful. John Christopher Latvenas says, I'm coming up there and we are going to eat off the land for a week. You need to practice, my friend. Well, yeah, I mean, during this time, we had like this ice that had formed over all the snow. I mean, we had 2.5 feet of snow on almost all the land. So that was another scary thing is you couldn't go outside foraging. There's nothing above the snow cap. You know, it's all snow. And in fact, I was helping all the birds stay alive. There's a whole big bird issue where they were really scared about this stuff. I had a whole flock of crows, and I was bailing them out. They really definitely needed to be fed. So David lives in so much poverty, LOL. Well, it's, you know what? I mean, if you can't do this, if you can't survive this way, then what's going to happen is, what are you going to do? Are you going to remember that you can pour water into a pot and wash your hands? Or how are you going to wash your hands? Are you going to get crazy and just start like screaming and go outside and throw them in the snow and then like hurt your hands because they're cold now? No, you got to think about these things. So I have been prepping for this moment since I listened to Art Bell in 1995, and he was selling the C. Crane hand cranking radio, which is now a standard thing the American Cross offers. American Red Cross sells a emergency hand crank radio. So these are good things to have in mind. You know, you want to be able to keep yourself safe. You want to be able to have a good way to get through this stuff. And I am now the guinea pig. I was telling you guys we might have a blackout. I was telling you guys we might have an internet blackout. Well, I got thrown into it. And in the middle of all this, again, I got threatened in a very, very astonishing way that really kind of gives me like a Jim Morrison type of vibe, you know, like in a good way, like a hero vibe. Like, wow, you guys, thanks for branding me into your crazy nonsense that you're doing. And as I said here in the slide, I'm not worried because of the math. And so what do I mean by that? What I mean is that there's already right now 40, Black Lotus, thank you. Why did you start eating meat? Well, because I had to. I was anemic. Janet Levitt, thank you for all you do, David. Always look forward to your live streams. I tried to make vegan work for 7 years, and we're going to talk about when I went to Japan and I went to these temples, and one of the things I was going to say is that that diet was not good for me, and I had very dark circles under my eyes when I went out there, and so the pictures are horrifying. The pictures made it darker than it really was, because a lot of times photographs will do that, but when you have really dark circles under your eyes, it's even worse. So yeah, I have discovered that if you look at the work of Weston Price, Dr. Weston Price, traditional diets are the way to go. So if you can't eat meat, then you can still get by with eggs and ghee. You want to get the clarified butter from cows that eat fast-growing grass. And when you buy eggs, you're typically looking for, unless you're total vegan, you can't even do eggs, but I highly recommend giving that up, at least. Look for the eggs with the dark orange yolks. Even if they're not the most organic ones, that doesn't even matter. If you got organic eggs and the yolks are yellow, I don't even, give me the orange yolks. And the darker orange they are, the more they have this compound that Dr. Weston Price called Activator X. And Activator X is also found extensively in meats, especially if they're raised organically. So that's why I only stick with bison. I don't touch beef at all. I mean, like, not at all. So I have a very, very strict diet that is essentially what we were adapted to be eating here in America on the plains. This was the food source that was provided. And of course, the Native Americans had a great reverence for this, and they made it a whole part of their culture. And so that's always been a part of what I'm about. And as you can see here, I have a bison over my head. Look at that. It's right there. And part of that is just that I really identify with that spirit. So I'm not worried about this because of the math, because there's so many of you out there who are sending me positive thoughts and wishes. So even if these people do a mass ceremony to try specifically to come after me, which is what it looks like, or at least the greater source that's working through me, they're trying to come after that, whatever you want to interpret that as. It's very unambiguous. I'll show you what I mean. You can laugh now for a couple more minutes and then you won't be laughing. Do I talk about it if somebody threatens me like this? Well, yeah, because I don't believe it. I don't think that this is going to work. If anybody sends Lam in here, I think that Gurley is going to kick his ass. I already said this. There's a movie that I want to make called Gurley versus Lam. That's one of the things we talk about in Sacred Science of Michael, the course that I now have, which we're offering a great discount on this week. But anyway, I'll get to that in a little while. Gurley versus Lam, you know, spindly little gray extraterrestrial, if he's not allowed to have his normal magic powers, he doesn't stand a chance against Gurley. He's never even going to make it to me in my bed. You know, before he even gets to the bed, he's already going to have to deal with Gurley. So, you know, I think maybe next time, you guys, if you want to summon something to come after me, make it bigger and stronger, because Lam just probably won't even make it past Gurley. So I'll just put that out there. Just giving them advice on how to threaten me in the future more effectively. So anyway, the movie Moment of Truth is something that I really haven't talked about a whole lot. And here's the slide. I wasn't on the right thing there. But Moment of Truth revealed this connection of this entity that got in touch with none other than the elusive Aleister Crowley. And so he is a very well-known figure in terms of having written a variety of books in which, admittedly, he did an amazing job of summarizing so many different types of traditional forms of magic that were practiced in various cultures. And not all of it was bad. You know, they were into Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism. He was researching that. Crowley was doing a very broad spectrum study of what was going on. And in fact, a lot of the Crowley research is part of why Manly Palmer Hall ended up writing Secret Teachings of All Ages, where he took that same concept of what Crowley was doing, but then goes even farther to explore all of these weird, arcane, hidden things that had been in weird Masonic libraries and books that nobody'd ever read. And then he's synthesizing all this data together to write Secret Teachings, which is very interesting. Okay, I mean, you got to give them credit. Like, the negative is very interesting. As you learn more about it, it's very complex. It's scary. It's weird. It's terrifying. Crystal P, thank you. Delphine Gomez, thank you. Appreciate your efforts. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you very much. So when we're seeing how this works, we have Manly Palmer Hall doing the same type of stuff that Crowley was doing. They're trying to compare all these things together. But again, you go to page 100 or page C in Manly's book, and it's talking about this summoning of Mephistopheles by Faust. And he says, hey, this is real. And then he says, if you get this creature after you, it can be a real big problem. He told you, do not mess with this, because once this creature starts coming after you, it's going to bother you all the time. In fact, there are weird stories about people playing around with this stuff, and these would be like elite families, okay? And these are pieces of disclosure I haven't shared yet, but that were conveyed to me in a way that is very trustworthy. That this is really going to scare you. So maybe, you know, have the kids go play with toys right now. But here we go. I'll talk around it in a circumspect way to make it easier for that if somebody didn't get out of the room. If people start doing the type of things that Crowley perfected as of whatever it was, 1904, I guess is when all this started. We'll see that in a minute. If you can play around with this stuff and you can get something like Mephistopheles to appear, okay, then the problem becomes, let's say you're doing this in your own castle. You're this elite family, you have this castle. And let's just say, because a particular whistleblower example I have, it was actually a female spirit. The creature was female. It was not male. And they were messing around in the basement. They were doing these things. And what started to happen is that, like, basically on a regular basis, and I don't know exactly how often it was, but let's say every few weeks, you hear this voice moaning in the basement. Oh! And it's a female voice. And she's going to drive you out of your mind, and you're going to hear this until you repeat another one of these events down there with her where she gets to participate. Imagine how horrifying it would be to be trapped in your house, you're stuck in your house, and you have this ghost, and it's moaning in the basement, and the only way you can make it stop so that you get your sanity back is now you got to go do something for this thing again. This is apparently real. This is apparently some of what people were dealing with. And so it's a very, very strange thing, because in order to get one of these negative entities to manifest, you have to have the right astronomical alignment. You have to have planets in the right alignment. This has always been the way it is. And this is why astrologers and alchemists are always kind of side by side. They need to calculate. Oh, that's right. They need to calculate astronomical alignments. Why? Because you can't do the work unless there's an astronomical alignment. Why? Because the entity isn't going to have enough energy to actually appear unless you have the right alignment. So this got very, very complex. And they would do strange things. Like, for example, Uncle Jack, the namesake of my glasses prop here. In fact, let's why not give it to you as Uncle Jack, mate? So this is something he actually told me one time. So these are true stories, okay? Mate, the London Fire, 1666. Why do you think they picked that year to do it, mate? It ends in 666. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They burn the whole thing down. They sacrifice a bunch of this land. Look at what it becomes, mate. It becomes the city of London, the financial center of their universe, mate. Why do you think they had to burn it down in that particular year, I wonder? Anyway, there you go. This is the kind of stuff that you actually hear. It's like, wow, I never thought of that. That's really, really crazy and scary. But yeah, so Uncle Jack and other insiders told me that there's different types of magic, and that one type of magic is played out upon a global level or a national level. And it involves, ceremonial events which are intended to try to appease these negative spirits. And so the negative spirits, as it says in Manly Palmer Hall's book, they want to be publicized. One of the most common things that's going to happen, the equivalent of the demon moaning in the basement, is the demon wants you to publicize its existence, and it won't be happy unless you do that. So, for example, they would carve gargoyles out of what they saw and then put them on the building. Well, that's something that they really saw. That's the part of the disclosure that you didn't have before, unless you've heard some of my shows. So again, Audrey Amal, thank you very much. So again, we had astronomical alignments being very important. There's these cosmic portals of energy that really are torsion fields, if you will. You could look at them as conduits, that there's like a wormhole in space, but the wormhole only exists in a certain portion of Earth's orbit, and that when you have these celestial bodies in alignment, they actually create a wormhole. And that wormhole creates this heightened energy of torsion fields that Kozyrev discovered. So the good part is that you will get healing, because again, it could heal prematurely born babies with the pyramid water. You can heal mental illnesses. They actually seem to improve in the presence of a pyramid. All types of health just get dramatically better. If you build a pyramid over an oil field, the oil comes out cleaner and purer, and you get more of it. It's the same thing with a well. They did pyramids over Chernobyl, and they found that the wells became non-radioactive. So this stuff really, really works. And one of the technologies we have is much better than the pyramid. It's a charge cluster or exotic vacuum object technology, where we shoot the charge clusters through radioactive material, and guess what? It deradiates the material, and it returns to tabletop levels, which are basically insignificant and safe for human life. So we can deradiate material with this Russian technology when it's fully applied. And that's a fascinating fringe benefit that we get from all of this. So there's a heightened torsion field energy that also can be happening from the sun. As the solar activity reaches its peak, you see the peak of warlike activities, but then you also see the peak of revolutionary breakthroughs and new scientific advancements. All of these things are very neatly correlated with the rhythmic pattern of solar activity. And I've talked about Tchaikovsky before, and how he discovers there's this 11-year sunspot cycle, and my God, every 11 years, you get this peak of wars, and you get this peak of new innovations and new scientific breakthroughs. And then you can even analyze what part of the 11-year cycle is happening in society. There's a 4-part cycle, and I was talking about this in last week's show. Well, it was 2 weeks ago. Feels like last week to me, because I just went through all this crazy stuff. So anyway, the whole point is that there were very elaborate astrological rituals that were needed to get this stuff to work. So if you go back to the time of Queen Elizabeth, you have her court astrologer, John Dee, and he was messing around with these things. So he's the astrologer. He has to know what the alignments are. And Uncle Jack told me that they made contact with entities using these practices, and that when Spain was invading England, the entity said, don't worry about it. Don't launch any of your ships. Keep them in the harbor. Don't do anything. And as the Spanish fleet was coming right in, there was this horrific storm, and it sank the entire fleet, and nobody even made it to be able to invade. And this happened not once, but twice. So ceremonial magic apparently was actually protecting Great Britain, according to the testimony of this guy who claimed that he was working right with the top family that starts with the R. And you know what I'm talking about. Red Shield, okay? He claimed that he was working right for him. And it wasn't even really clear if he was an insider. who was really a whistleblower or if he was trying to recruit me. This is a funny one. Let's do this one. This is funny. Why don't you come back to your family, David? He used to say this. David, we miss you. We miss you, David. Come back to your family, Dave. He'd say that kind of stuff sometimes. It was so funny. I'm like, no, I'm not really into the whole like evil thing. You know, I'm sorry. I respect the offer, but I was told I could have billions upon billions of dollars, and all I had to do is just talk favorably about Lucifer. That is true. And it came at me in many different ways and many different times. So no, I'm not interested in this whole type of stuff because there's different ways to look at it, and some of them appear to be benign. There's certain ways you can look at it where people are like, oh, it just is a symbol for the rebellious spirit that we all have. But maybe there's something else to it. Maybe there's people who are doing these practices and they're getting something like Mephistopheles to appear. But then again, it can end up in your basement groaning all the time and you have to keep feeding it, basically. So it's not really something you want to fall into as a lifestyle. That's a very bad lifestyle to have because these entities will influence how you think and feel. They will influence other people to hurt you. They can make it impossible for you to leave the house. So one of the things they're always asking for is publicity. They want you to publicize them. I talked about gargoyles, but all these things that you keep seeing being done, like in music awards ceremonies and Olympic halftime show, and they keep showing you these very dark displays of blood and horns and fire and people gyrating in these dark black and red costumes and et cetera, et cetera. They just, every single year, like I said, don't you guys ever get an original idea? Like it's just, Satan is the coolest thing you can think of every single year. Okay, well, all right, whatever. Yeah, but I'm not going to watch it. I mean, I find out about it and I take pictures of it. Sometimes I look at them, but I don't watch these shows. I don't really watch any television. So anyway, this is a very strange subject because like these entities are real and they exist and they want to be part of our reality. But it used to be that you had to be a master astrologer like Queen Elizabeth's court astrologer, John Dee, to be able to do everything properly to get one of them to show up. But all of that changed, and I talk about this extensively in the Michael prophecies, as of 1936. There's an astonishing correlation between the Edgar Cayce readings and the Law of One. Now, Carla Ruckert channeled the Law of One, but she didn't know about the Edgar Cayce readings saying the same thing. The Edgar Cayce readings have specific prophecies. I think it's 3976-14, if I remember correctly, but maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, it says that in 1936, the inner core of the Earth will shift. And then we can look at things like Chandler's Wobble and see there is a weird fluctuation in Chandler's Wobble in 1936. And there are, in fact, weird changes to the core of the Earth. And then Cayce also said that the Earth's core would decisively shift, that there were new vibrations coming in 1936 that would eventually cause the Earth's core to shift in 2001. And sure enough, the Earth's core did start shifting in 2001, and it completed shifting in 2013. And I have that in book 2 of the Michael prophecies. And we'll talk about that in future shows as well. So anyway, there's this fascinating thing about 1936 because in the Law of One material, they're communicating in 1981, and then they say that approximately 45 years before your present, 1981, which is 1936, approximately 45 years before is when this fourth density energy began streaming in a lot more strongly, in which thoughts become things. And so both the positive and the negative greatly benefit from this. So the negative benefited from this, where it became much easier to get these lower astrals, if you will, negative entities to appear through doing these types of various magical ceremonies, which again, it's very dark stuff, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail because you already know what the details are. You've heard about this. But you just didn't realize maybe that if people are swayed into doing it, however they're swayed, that you're going to get results that will shock the heck out of you and will forever change your life, and you'll never be the same. You will never be able to unsee it. Okay, that's part of what happens to people, and it's widely reported. So anyway, what we see here is that I created this movie, Moment of Truth, And I had no idea how big it was going to get. And it revealed this connection with the being known as Lam. Now, Lam is actually a traditional-looking gray ET who apparently contacted Aleister Crowley in 1904. And it's now publicly, I'm okay to say this, that it was Chris Beskar, the CEO of Stavati Aerospace, who personally obtained this intel and shared it with me, that Lam gave Aleister Crowley a class on how to get these ceremonies to work properly that was greatly updated from all the arcane stuff they were clinging to back from John Dee and the Elizabethan era. They had a lot of weird ways of doing things that they didn't need to do. And they didn't need to be so concerned about astronomical alignments anymore, because as we got into the 20th century, it becomes easier for this to work. So Crowley gets these updated protocols, which he then begins sharing with people, and sure enough, instead of having to wait for a special alignment that only happens a couple times a year, now you can just do one and it's going to work. And so this is why he was so highly celebrated. So in this movie, I talk about this Lam connection. And so in order to be able to find it, it's in multiple parts, and you have to go to the third page in. But this is where you would actually go. You could just type in the link at the beginning. You don't need all the hash stuff, and then you just type in the title, and eventually you want to find part 1, or you could just type that link in. But either way, the point is that in this movie, I show scenes from Jupiter Ascending, and I connect it directly to Lam, because the intel from Chris Beskar's insiders is that Lam is a gray ET, and that the Greys and the Draco Reptilians are both real, and that their agenda is to get people practicing this type of ceremonial stuff. That's one of the main things they want us doing, is to engage in this practice. And again, at this link, if you watch this movie, it's a total of 4 hours long, and Mike's team broke it up into a bunch of segments so you can watch it in smaller chunks. I don't even know if it's left anywhere else online. They keep taking it down. So that's probably the only place you can find it, and that's why I put it there in the first place, because I knew it wouldn't get taken down on that site. But it is mind-blowing. I mean, I did a lot of production value. I make it like a Hollywood film. It's got lots of big-name stars in it, B-roll that I all used with fair use, all done legally. But then the argument is, yeah, you know what? There's these gray ETs, and they contacted Crowley, and that's what this movie was depicting. This movie, Jupiter Ascending. You have this guy, Lord Baalem. Baal, oh, where have we heard that before? Baalem, interesting. Lord Baalem. And he lives off of soaking in human material, actually. That's what we find out, that he represents the head of a group of ETs. In this case, they look human, but they're based on the Greys, apparently. And these ETs, which in the movie look human, are going around. Earth is just one of many planets where they're farming it for this elixir of life that they're creating by this refinement process that they use. So it's this very, very strange thing. So again, the movie Moment of Truth pioneered the use of, well, I wouldn't say pioneered, but in the movie I brand it through the whole thing with an all capital letters version of Futura Condensed Medium. And that's actually the font. It's not the same font you see here, but it's very similar to that. Or maybe it's the same one. It could be. Anyway, FCM, Futura Condensed Medium, it's really cool because as you're looking for fonts on your font list, like if you go into any type of, if you're going to make a video and you're going to make a title, the default font might be Arial, it might be Times New Roman, it might be something else. That word FONT is how you're going to change the way that your text looks. So if you get the font to be Futura Condensed Medium, so you look for the F and then you find Futura, and then under the submenu you have Condensed Medium as one of the choices, and then you have to do it in all capital letters, so you leave the caps lock on when you're typing. If you do all that stuff, then you get this cool look that I branded into the show, which again is the same look of all the text that I have in all these slides here. And after I put that in there, it began to get very, very widely used throughout, all the Republican side, all the Democrat side, the truth community. It's incredible how widespread the use of this font is, and it's nothing I can control. I don't even want to take credit for it. It's just very interesting that this font became very widespread in use after I released this movie. And beforehand, nobody was really captioning movies this way. But now there's entire plugins that you can get for Premiere and for Final Cut that allow you to make this as the subtitle, where you have that style I created with the all capital letters, Futurican as medium. That was really scary and crazy, and I didn't want to mess with it. I didn't want to take credit for it. I'm like, I'm not even going to talk about this. So I left it alone, and it's gone so crazy. It's gone on for so long now. It's like I see it every day. It's amazing. So whoever did start doing that and chose to use this font, thank you. You know, even though it's not really me, this is just something that happened. But again, I think it's because this movie blew people's minds. It exposed so much truth all at once in a big condensed package. And I show you the story about Aleister Crowley and Lam, that here he is in 1904, and that he comes in contact with this entity. The first entity was called Aiwass, but that by 1917, he's making direct contact with Lam, who looks like a gray, in Crowley's own sketches that he made from 1917. But the original entity that contacted him was Aiwass in 1904. So imagine the surprise after putting this movie out. And again, this movie talks about all this stuff, right? We find out on April 7th, 2024, right in the middle of the eclipse. This is when this post was posted. It's actually on April 8th is when the post was, April 7th. But April 8th, 2024 is exactly 120 years to the day from when Crowley first made contact. And this was shown by, again, Shadow of Ezra. I've showed this many times. You really ought to be going there to Twitter. All you have to do is go to X and keep hitting that channel on X. Man, there's so much stuff that he's putting out now, I can't keep up with it. But again, as far as I'm concerned, and I have very extensive evidence that I've been showing you week after week now, this is the primary, if not the only authoritative voice of the Alliance right now. Anything else is not as close to the source. It might be valuable. I love to hear intel, but I'm looking at this as prime source, and I'm looking at everything as one level down or more. That's just the way I personally choose to view the data spectrum of what I'm looking at. So check this out. This is very weird. And again, this was on April 7th that they put this out. Aleister Crowley, this is exactly the same thing I talked about in the movie 2 years ago. Aleister Crowley encountered, almost 3 years ago now, a mysterious entity called Aiwass on April 8th, 1904. Aiwass imparted profound wisdom to Crowley, which Crowley later documented in the Book of Law. April 8th, 2024 is coincidentally the date of the solar eclipse this year. The picture is of Lam, a spiritual entity that occultist Crowley channeled in the 20th century. Whoa. Yeah, that looks pretty unambiguous to me. I mean, okay, the eyes are a little weird, and so it might have been projecting some eyes that were different. George Wood is telling me that Stavati is taking advantage of me. That is definitely not the case. We have at least one really strong deal coming in soon. I'm not worried about my tax debt anymore. I might even be able to pay it off this week. That would be wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to doing so. So let's hope that they will accept some kind of an offer and not just make me pay the whole thing in full, but we'll find out. Anyway, I'm not worried about it. It's not a problem. I'm not being taken advantage of. And so again, the eyes are a little strange here. Like, yeah, I'm not sure that looks exactly like a gray, but I mean, come on. The nose with the little 2 dots, the weird little mouth, the weird chin, the huge head, there's no ears. Duh, that's a gray. I mean, that's what we know it is. It's no big surprise. And so this again is showing you that there is this weird correlation between things that they're posting on this channel on Twitter, X, and things that I had already been disclosing before. And this is a direct validation. And so what they were telling us is that the very date of the eclipse from these other texts that they've talked about, the very date of the eclipse, I mean, they showed you this, for example. Look at this. They're showing you that there are going to be, or that they were trying to have, black swan events during or immediately after the eclipse. Because there's a black swan, in front of an eclipse. Somebody says it looks like Lam has the tree of life on his forehead. You are amazing, Creeptasia says. Do not stop doing what you're doing. Yeah, so this is very cool stuff. I mean, it's like they're giving us these codes, and they validated Moment of Truth, which I was very honored to see. And so that's why I want you to go watch it, and I showed you how to go find it. It is about 4 hours altogether. I broke it up originally into 2 main parts that were 2 hours each, like movies. But I've never spent that kind of time on a movie again, except for Spaceship, which half of it isn't even available on Vimeo right now. They just keep taking everything I do down. It's not as secure as I thought it would be. So that's fine. But anyway, you can go to this other site, Brighteon, and there it is. So here they're showing you the eclipse with the black swan. Whoa. And they had just talked about that on that date of the eclipse is the 120-year anniversary of Lam's arrival as Aiwass. These Greys that were trying to get him to get in, dabbling in all this really dark magic. Wow. That's really, really interesting. So a 120-year cycle. I mean, I've seen these 120-year cycles before in the cycles of history analysis. In fact, there's a breathtaking 120-year cycle in my books between Edgar Cayce and me, where I forget what it was that was happening to me that was very intense and very difficult, but it was the same time in Casey's life where all of his Sunday school kids had to get sent off to World War I. And it overlapped. That was a 100-year cycle. I'm sorry. I think that's what it was. Or maybe it was 90. Anyway, there's different ones, but I have 120-year cycles in the book, and I'm not remembering what they are right now because, again, I wasn't even thinking I was going to do this show. But the Black Swan event, we're now seeing that. We're seeing Iran going after Israel with all these drones, and it's so freaking terrifying. That's what this is, folks. They wanted to create something that's going to try to usher in the end of the world. World War III, Armageddon, apocalypse, catastrophic circumstances for everyone. That's what this is about. Now, it gets even crazier because not only did this eclipse just so happen to be during the time that it was, but it's 120 years after the time that Crowley summoned these beings. Well, yeah, that's because they want to do the same thing. So, whoops, let's go back to the slide here. I kind of popped ahead of it too fast, but so this was another thing that they posted that SOE posted that really, really shocked me on their Twitter page. These are the APEP sounding rockets, and I'll show you the next slide really fast just so you can see what they're talking about. So this is a very fearsome looking thing. And notice again that it looks like a ballistic missile. It looks like exactly the type of stuff that's being shot at Israel now. But this is not anything war related. This was something they did as a strange event on the eclipse. They did it on the eclipse. They shot this thing into the air. What? All right, so here's what they say. Now you've seen it, so we can talk about it. These are the APEP sounding rockets. So the name of the rocket is APEP, and it's a sounding rocket, I guess, means it's a type of, it creates sounds or something to measure things. But anyway, it's the APEP rockets that NASA will be launching right before and after the moon passes in front of the sun during the eclipse. Named for the Egyptian serpent deity and nemesis of the sun god Ra. Whoa. So APEP is the nemesis of Ra. And Ra is the name of the source that also goes by Archangel Michael. I've been talking about the Law of One, which was originally called the Ra material in Book 1, since 1996 online in postings I made on forums with Richard C. Hoagland. So I've always talked about Ra. And again, as I've done whole episodes you can watch here on YouTube, so I'm not hiding this from you behind a paywall or anything, we found out that, yeah, the Law of One clearly indicates that the Great Pyramid was originally built as a Christian monument. And when you go back to this research from the 1700s and 1800s, there was a huge, huge Christian movement of analyzing the pyramid and finding a timeline that very accurately shows you the birth, crucifixion, resurrection of Christ, That's the biggest event in the ascending passage, where the height goes up to 286.1 pyramid inches, is right when that happens. The height goes much higher than you're originally crouching down. Right at the moment that Jesus has the crucifixion resurrection is where the height of the ceiling gets much, much taller. It's like 20 feet tall now. It's amazing. And there's all these dates that are correlated with it. The Great Pyramid creates a cross of light on the ground during, I believe, the summer solstice, when the sun is kind of in the middle. You get this crucifix on the ground, and at the 153rd course, up from the bottom, which is 153 fishes in Jesus' net, that's the thickest course in the whole pyramid up until that point. So there's all kinds of weird things like that. It's weird Christian synchronicities, and they're everywhere. If you measure in pyramid inches the diameter, the diagonals going from one corner of the pyramid over the top to the other opposite corner, that's exactly 25,672 primitive inches, or pyramid inches, which is basically the precessional cycle we were talking about. So that whole 25,000-year cycle is encoded into the pyramid. That's one way. There's many, many other ways. But again, it's a Christian monument that then got co-opted, where the deep state folks say, oh, well, we want to use this symbol. We want to use the eye on top of the pyramid. We want to make the pyramid something really scary and bad. So again, Archangel Michael in Michael prophecies clearly revealed that he's now come back as Archangel Michael, but that it was also, as a time-traveling entity, he had to disguise his identity. So when he contacted other races in the past, he went by the name Ra. And then they ended up distorting the message and creating what we now think of as the deep state. So the deep state originally was created, according to the law of one, by a distortion of their work. So again, check this out. They create these, they have an APEP rocket, and it's named after the nemesis of Ra. That is a direct threat, because according to these other posts that you're going to see, they're using this in a ceremonial capacity. They launched this on the eclipse as a threat, as part of a weird ritual, okay? So supposedly, the rockets study how Earth's upper atmosphere is affected when sunlight momentarily dims over a portion of the planet. They might be visible if you're in the Washington, D.C. area. The targeted launch times for 3 different rockets are 2:40, 3:20, and 4:05 p.m., but it may be subject to change. So again, this is what the rocket looks like. So APEP, they're literally launching this rocket. So, okay, let's talk about something else. Richard C. Hoagland and his colleague Mike Barra wrote the incredible New York Times best-selling book, Dark Mission. And I have the highest respect for both of them for writing that one book alone. What they did is summarized a whole lot of information that was maybe originally being talked about by Jordan Maxwell, going through like basically every single NASA launch there's ever been. And they typically do the launch where Venus, the star that they associate with Lucifer, is at either like 33 degrees altitude in the sky or 22.5 degrees in the sky, and 22.5 is Venus. It's 225, the number of days of their orbit. So they have these things called the alignments, and then Hoagland would go into great detail and spend so much time talking about this. Like, they keep doing these alignments, and the alignments show you, where these, where everything is at a certain time, and that's when they launch the rocket. Well, we got to get it right. We got to have everything lined up. Well, apparently, in their tradition, Lucifer is associated with flying machines and rockets. And so they look at the launching of a rocket as an act of worship or an act of war. So they will do it at ceremonial times. I mean, to me, it sounds really ridiculous, but they do it at ceremonial times thinking that it's going to give them some type of extra edge. And again, you don't have to believe that this is true, but this is what they do. So the name of this rocket is APEP, A-P-E-P, supposedly the enemy of yours truly. And all the other comms that Ezra was sharing with us are saying that they're doing a mass ceremony on the eclipse and that it's very evil and that they're trying to summon the enemy of Ra, which is my enemy, right? So, yeah, it's kind of a big threat. So I decided instead of calling him APEP, we're going to call him CPAP, because this stands for Continuous Pathway Continuous Path Air, whatever, prosthetic, something like that, CPAP. That's where I think that the grays are at right now, folks. I do not look at this as anything big. But again, right here on April 8th, there he is on now Telegram, and he says NASA rockets will be fired to the Eclipse from the swamp, Washington, D.C. This is all a major ritual. And then not only that, they got to throw out a numeric code where on April 8th, they show you this. That was on the news that the end time that they're willing to show you on the map in Maine happens to be 3:33 p.m. So he says the last stop shows the time 3:33. Any questions? And that's Caribou, Maine. Well, yeah, so these people are weird nerds who like to screw around with this stuff, and they think that if they launch off these 3 rockets, and it's the enemy of Ra, and that they do a big ceremony, that they can summon this gray to come here and fight Gurley. And I swear to God, Gurley's going to kick his ass. He's just got these spindly little arms and legs. I'm not really that worried about him, because Michael's not going to let him influence me with any type of technology that he's got. So, I haven't had Lam show up. I'm still here, a week after this happened. I wasn't going to do the show, but sure enough, they're trying to do all this weird ceremonial symbolic stuff, and it involves shooting rockets up into the air and 333 and major ritual ceremonies and da-da-da. And then all of a sudden, oh, wow, that's right, yeah. Now there's this crazy war situation going on involving what? Oh, that's right, the launch of a bunch of rockets. So that's the Black Swan event they were trying to create. They're trying to piggyback what they did on the Eclipse. This is what Ezra is trying to tell us, I believe. Now, I may be wrong, but, he can correct me if he wants to. But anyway, I'd love to see that happen. But, look, they're on my side. Somebody was trying to create these fake posts, like that they answered somebody in a private message. Oh, I'm not happy. Well, no. Why would they talk about this stuff that's in my movie unless they were happy with the movie? Maybe they're trying to offset the movie. Who knows? But the point is, there's a lot of things, and I'm happy to help. And I think anybody who helps them promote this, they're happy. Why would they get mad at you for promoting stuff they want people to know? I have a big audience. Okay, so they show you the 333 thing, and then after the ceremony, they talked about this. And here it is. This was on Twitter. Peter Higgs has passed away. Higgs postulated the existence of the eponymous Higgs boson in 1964. Its discovery at CERN in 2012 was the crowning achievement of the standard model of particle physics. CERN is paying tribute to Peter Higgs by firing this thing up. He died on April 8th, 2024, the same day as the solar eclipse. Whoa. Now, you can speculate as to what this means, and they did. Okay? So this is, again, the close-up of what I just showed you. So that's the same as what they put on Twitter, or what I showed you. But then when you go over to TG, oh, it gets a little bit different. That's a little bit different than what they said on Twitter. CERN scientist is no more, and he's got the big red X. So you could speculate on this either way. One way to speculate is that maybe the deep state did this, and they deliberately knocked him off on that day to try to add to the level of whatever magic power they think that's going to cause. Because again, I was joking about it in the last show, but they launched these rockets, they did a major ceremony on the Eclipse, and they fired up the world's largest particle accelerator at the same time. And all the posts that we're seeing from this source are saying, yeah, they're trying to create some type of weird evil vortex. So again, this was a very strange development in the story. And then the next day, they posted something I found very noteworthy. This was on April 11th, saying that 45 never conceded. Now, once again, we already know what they are doing here, and so that's why I highlighted it so you can see that it's 19 seconds long. And again, 198,000 views. This is a very, very popular site. So we go to the 19th post from the original posts that started in 2017. And this is what we come up with. This is post number 19. So they wanted us to read this right now. And remember, this also comes immediately after in the comms that I shared with you last time about the situation with the very, very famous black musician and rap producer who has now been arrested. And this is a widening probe that's going to get probably a lot bigger, and there's all these murmurings, but nothing's really happened yet. Well, this ties in directly to that. Why do D's want to control the black pop? Why do they intentionally keep poor and in need? Why do D's project racism on a daily basis against ours? Why do black elected officials do the talk on behalf of D's? How did D's cover the historical facts of forming the Confederacy, various racist organizations, and opposing all things that are pro-black, such as legislation? Audio Shanti says, David, we knew you were with them by the horns in your thumbnail from the circle light, but now you've confirmed it with the hurt eye. She's donating money, so just keep sending money. Thank you. You can hate me if you want to. No, that's just a joke. That's funny. Thank you. Thanks for the donation. What happens if D's lose the slave grip on the black pop? Why did D's, through the funding of your favorite organization, prop up and install Hollywood media assets? Does this fall within Operation Mocking? What were the historical advantages D's gained by having MSM and famous people peddling the narrative? Who exposed the network within Hollywood? Look at all this, huh? This is very interesting. So they're really kind of targeting the D's here. You can't answer the above, but you will laugh once we disclose all the details. Wow. So we are going to get the details. The network that controls this false narrative, which in turn keeps this population under control, is now being dismantled. False local and national leaders will be exposed next as shills for this party. Follow the money. Maxine has a 4 million home and cash assets in excess of 6 million. How is that possible? One example. All of these questions help to paint the full picture. Okay, so sure enough, that's all relevant. But again, getting back to the main theme here, they showed us Lam. And, if somebody wants to hate on my eye, I'm sorry. Whatever. I mean, I'm here. I showed up for you. If you can't handle that my face is a little bit off, I'm sorry. There you go. Again, right after all these eclipse ceremonies and all this weird murmurings about maybe they're doing something underground and maybe there's a whole bunch of them there and maybe they're all doing a bunch of stuff at the same time, and they coordinate it with these rockets, and then the CERN guy mysteriously vanishes on that same day. Did they do that to him on purpose on that day? Are they trying to use CERN to get Lam to show up? Well, again, if he did show up, Gurley kicked his ass so fast I never had anything to deal with it. So on April 12th, we see this that they posted on Twitter, and this is fascinating, Twitter X, about additional warships. It says the U.S. is deploying additional warships and military aircraft to the ME. And the current resident has stated, we are devoted to the defense of the small country, and Iran will not succeed. Devoted to the defense and additional warships. So this was very frightening because this was an escalation. And then when you look at his quote, it's as if they want to participate in this. And now we're seeing that happen, but thankfully it's not going in the way that we thought it was going to go. It's turning out much better, and I'm happy for that. So this was the setup, and then you're going to see another one later on that shows, no, it's actually really good now. So I don't think we have to worry about anything. I'll tell you that in a minute. So then on April 12th, a base in Antarctica that apparently was a site of massive evil. It could very likely involve, greys and trafficking of people and all kinds of stuff and reptilians and who the heck knows. I mean, it could also be that they were using it to control the weather. It could be that this was where various attacks are coming from that are causing bad things to happen, like in the case of my climate, where I'm just so depressed that I'm like squeezing zits on my eye, not realizing it's going to make my eye look terrible, and I need to be on camera. But hey, I got the white pellet out. I was very happy about that. Anyway, this evil Antarctic base was apparently destroyed, as they said right here. And so this is the whole picture, and then I'm going to zoom in on the top first. And again, when you see this black circle, look at the size of this wave. It goes all the way halfway up the bottom of Africa, right? Can you see that? And that there's ripples around it. And then look at the color. This is an 80-foot tall wave that happened around Antarctica. What is happening in Antarctica that caused waves to go as high as 80 feet in this massive amount of ocean? Some people have speculated, wink, 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 some people have speculated, which means we're telling you what happened. Some people have speculated that something similar also occurred on February 21st of this year. So they obviously destroyed a base back then. The official story is that this is a data glitch caused by the algorithm. Do you believe them? And then when you watch the video, it actually runs through these ocean ripples. You can see the ripples below the black circle now, but I mean, look at the size of that thing. It's so huge. I mean, like there's Argentina over in South America. It's almost 3/4 the size of the Argentinian coast. So this is an utterly massive wave that if any islands had been there, it's again the 80-foot tsunami I was talking about that you would expect to associate with the end of the world. But wait a minute, one just happened and it's this massive area, but nobody's talking about it. And they're like, oh yeah, it's just a glitch. No. What they're doing is taking credit for having just blown up some massive evil Antarctic base. That's obviously what I think is going on here. So that's what we're seeing. All right, next one. They don't really like Iran. I can say that. I mean, I don't like Iran either. Whatever they're just doing right now is like, you guys just stop. I mean, please. Can we please not lose the planet over you guys' fighting? Like, please? Okay, so yeah, well, guess what? They got a Masonic building. And so their parliament is shaped like a pyramid and happens to have, it just so happens to have 33 windows. Wow. Well, that's not anything too surprising, honestly. Those types of actions, it's like they want to control both sides. They want to play one side against the other. And so what you think is Iran might actually be the deep state. And they might be trying to get something to happen right after they did this ceremony where they're trying to invoke Lam. I mean, it's crazy, right? It sounds crazy, but again, until you understand what's going on, it is going to look crazy. And then right before I was going to do the show, this showed up this morning where Klaus has now been crossed out. And I'm like, wow, okay, what's this all about? And then sure enough, shortly thereafter, this news comes in that he's in the hospital. So does that mean that he's gone? Probably not. But when they get you in the hospital, something happens. They give you a debriefing or they give you a trial or I don't know what it is. But like, this is very interesting. And so now we got to keep all eyes on Klaus and figure out what the heck did they mean by this and what's going to happen next. Because I have no idea. I'm just relaying information that I'm getting off of the internet the same way that you could. So remember that in the earlier text that they sent us about the warships that they're saying, he's prepared to defend all this stuff. Well, this is very interesting because Biden is now officially de-escalated, and this is the top headline on Zero Hedge this morning. Biden tells Bibi U.S. will not support a counterattack against Iran even after these hundreds of drones and missiles have been sent in. And Biden says, you got to win. Take the win. Well, I don't know if he's going to want to do that, but there's been a lot of really interesting comms about Bibi as well. There's all kinds of intrigue going on, and I don't expect that this is going to turn into a big situation. I just don't. There's groups of hardliners that may want it to, and I'm talking about hardliners within either country. But I totally do not think that this is where it's going. I believe that this is all part of the plan. So they're still giving us these communications. They're showing us how the deep state tried to set this up in advance with their magical ceremony, and then they want to try to get a bunch of people to die because they're hoping that this is going to be a trigger that's going to lead to this massive, massive World War III, and then they can get it all done in the name of this weird, spindly, gray creature. I don't want to support a creature like that. Flick him off like a little, oh my God, get him off of me, man. It's like a tick. I had a tick on my hand. What the hell? That's about as much as it is. So anyway, our company was doing really well in Japan, and this kind of inspired my talk today, that this tweet that they made goes viral. We made this, okay? This was really amazing. The Stavati SM-31 Stiletto is a potential jet trainer to replace Japan's Air Self-Defense Force T-4 trainers. SM-31 can serve as a replacement for 197 T-4s while achieving interoperability between the F-15, F-35, and future Stavati fighters. So again, if you look down at the bottom, this is the amazing part, folks. It has 1 million views. And there it is again, 1:05 p.m., March 26, 1 million views. So we have gotten very, very excited about this. I don't usually get that kind of viewership on my tweets. My tweets are maybe in 5-figure viewership most of the time. So 1 million, 7-figure views? Wow. Japan really likes seeing this new airplane in their colors, and they're worried about China, and they're worried about being invaded. And yeah, we know how to do this, and we can build these little guys, that cost only, depending on how we're doing it, they're as low as if we do a drone for them, it's like we can get them down to 12 to 15, $17 million. And then with all the nice bells and whistles, you get up to 20 to $27 million. So again, Japan is very interested in this, and that's really great for us. And as a result of this, we're starting to have things heat up with Japan. I think that this really caught their attention, this tweet, and we were contacted by them. And so there's some very exciting opportunities in that direction that are very, very much needed right now. So we need that kind of a breakthrough. So Chris Beskar is the designer of these, and he is my co-star in the Sacred Science of Michael course, where we talk about Lam and we talk about what was Aleister Crowley doing in 1917 and all of this stuff about the angels and the dark side. We get into the weird stuff a lot deeper than I'm willing to go on YouTube about the dark stuff, and actually upset one of our switcher ladies. I'm sorry about that, but it is an upsetting subject sometimes, but we try to make it as fun as we can. But anyway, this is my product, and it's what I'm doing right now. 11 documentaries, 10.5 hours. Go to thedisclosure.com and type in the code word jubilation. You'll get a huge discount. I do still need your help. Maybe that will change by the end of this week. I don't know. We can cross our fingers, but up until now, I'm still like in the classic 2.5-year total bankruptcy situation. So it's nice to have food, and it's nice to have my bills paid. So thank you for ordering the product and or your super chats. I do really appreciate it. Also, real quick, I want to mention that I am going to be appearing again at the Disclosure Summit 2024. And if you go to this link, which is in my comment field below, you can find that. It is in Loveland, Colorado. And we're at the Best Western Plus Hotel. And please don't show up at the hotel unless you actually bought a ticket. That's rude to just try to crash our party and not actually pay to get in. People do that sometimes, but don't fly all the way out there just to try to crash the party. Just buy a ticket and we'll let you in. No big deal. It's not a big crowd right now, so I probably will be able to meet people in person. I'm not going to definitely prove that will happen right now, but it looks good. And Chris is going to be there too. So we're both speaking at this thing. And again, you can go to this link. So also, Corey Good is going to be there. And I haven't mentioned this on video before. Okay, but what happened to me with Michael Prophecies is very oddly similar to the story that Corey and I were both discussing on Cosmic Disclosure. And so it's fascinating to me that after our show ends, many years after our show ends, that I am remembering being brought on board ships, being taken off planet, having meetings with different extraterrestrials, and then Archangel Michael confirming this in these books that I channeled originally in the late 1990s when I was doing remote viewing. And then they're all predicting events that are happening right now with breathtaking precision. So I know there's not going to be a war. I know there's not going to be the end of the world because Michael describes everything that's going on right now. And he gives us a path through it, and he shows us where it's going later on. So these books are amazing. The videos are amazing. They will build your faith. And I am probably going to be doing another product in the future. It might be called Understanding Satan. And I'm going to focus just on some of the stuff that is revealed in the Law of One and in the Michael Prophecies about the negative, and really kind of go beyond what I could get away with saying on a live stream. So then, after we have this interesting thing happen with the tweet in Japan getting so many views, I hear a Japanese phrase in my mind. And it appeared to be the manifestation of a protective martial arts master. The phrase that I heard, which I had no idea what it meant, but it was just as clear as a bell had been rung, was Gochi so samadeshita. And because I do understand how to write Japanese in Romaji, which is what they call our English letters, this is the correct way to spell Gochi so samadeshita. Now, I didn't know if it meant anything, and I was kind of in a hurry to walk my dog, but I said, what the hell, before I do, I'm going to walk downstairs, type it into Google Translate, and see if this means anything. And this is what this is what happened. Before I typed in deshta, which is D-E-S-I-T-A, it offered me des, which is D-E-S-U. And so when I typed it in that way, because and that felt right to me. So intuitively, Gochiso Samades felt right. I'm like, yeah, okay, it said Samadeshta, but then when I saw the des, in my psychic sense, I'm like, yep, that's what you need. That's the right spelling now. You got it. Okay, well, I typed it in and I hit the button and it says, I am a local ancestor. Wow. I mean, I was just so blown away. How in the hell did I bring in a phrase in Japanese that I don't understand telepathically? I hear it as clear as a bell in my mind while I'm walking through the house, and then it turns out to mean I am a local ancestor. And if it's in the original form, deshta, it means he is a local ancestor. That's the only thing that's different. But he's introducing himself. It's like this master is introducing himself, and I realized, okay, the local ancestor, I'm up in the mountains, and I'm being protected by the best martial arts masters in the business. My ex-wife, Elizabeth, was doing the Wudong form. It's a very high-level Asian martial art, and she did this in the middle of the living room every day for months when she was here. And we had this whole experience with the Wudong master showing up, and so I believe that that is who it was, the guy who actually did these movements in the first place, the original lineage holder of Wudong. So that seems to be part of what's going on. I mean, I couldn't believe this. Like, I am a local, I mean, dude, the hair on my arms just went like, I could not believe that I got a phrase in a foreign language I do not speak accurately that had such stunning relevance. And that's what got me to realize he wants me to talk about Shinto because it's in Japanese. And I met these Japanese ancestral spirits by going to their shrines in Japan. And now that Japan has given us 1 million views, I want to talk about Japan a little more. So in 2002, I had written my book, Shift of the Ages, and then it got translated, apparently not very well. It was like a machine translation into Japanese. And then in Japanese, it was called Tenkan no Jidai, Paradigm Shift. So my first ever really big tour as a public figure was in Japan in 2002 for this book called Tenkan no Jidai. And when I was there, I visited many, many different Shinto shrines, and I'm only going to focus on one for the sake of time. In some ways, this was the most impressive because it was the first place where ETs had ever contacted the Japanese indigenous people. This was on a place called Onakoro Island, and the shrine is called Awajishima, or Izanagi Jingu. So this is the photograph of it from the outside. Now you have to climb up so many stairs to get to this place. It's just like you are so exhausted. Your legs are dying. You can barely even walk by the time you... I'm not exaggerating, man. You got to go up this whole freaking mountain, stair by stair. By the time I got up to this shrine, I didn't even care anymore. But then when I saw it, I'm like, wow, this is just amazing. So they have all this really cool stuff. This is how you walk through the front door. They have these really cool lamps there. The architecture is just wonderful. And here's another shot of that thing in the front. Look at the rooftops and how they curve. Look at the cool stuff, the cool design elements on top of the roof. All of this is also really great for wind resistance. If you get these really howling winds, it helps to fight that off. But it is a very visually stunning piece of architecture. Oh, a lot of people are giving me comments now. So after filling their stomachs, Japanese people thank those who prepared, cooked, and served their food by saying, Gochiso sama desu. Oh, that's what it is. Thank you. Okay, because I remembered my girlfriend saying that, my ex-girlfriend from Japan, and we'd say, Gochiso sama desu. That's what it was. Thank you. Wow, okay. So I didn't know that. It's really good to have a live audience. Anyway, so the architecture is so stunning, and these pictures cannot do justice to what it feels like to be standing there at all. And I loved the interplay of white paint and dark brown wood. I thought that looked really cool. And the rooftop off in the background on the left is really great looking too. This is an amazing place. This is kind of like the front gate. And you got these big slabs. It's like monolith. It's really cool. Well, it was at this place, I believe, that they were visited by the Dogu. This was their name for extraterrestrials who came in what they called Anemono Torobune. And the literal translation, if you've ever heard me say this, is flying boats from the universe. So there are statues of the Dogu made by the Japanese. And these statues have surprising connections to the appearance of other visitors from around the world. So this is an actual image of the Japanese Dogu extraterrestrial visitor. And the reason why this is going to become so important, again, the place they first contacted us was Wajishima, that shrine that I just showed you. And I went there, and so I got to experience the original location where these guys touched down and where contact occurred that then spurred the religion known as Shinto. Okay, this is where it was. So that's what they were seeing. I mean, it looks he's got some kind of space uniform on, right? Look at he's got like shin pads that have this interesting texture. His whole uniform has that interesting texture. He's got almost like a diver's outfit on or something. And his eyes are really weird. His face is really weird and flat. Like, who is this dude? So, I don't know. I mean, but it looks a lot similar to sculptures of the Mayan god Quetzalcoatl. Many have speculated that that is a helmet on his head. The other guy looks like a space traveler too. In Mesoamerica, we have Viracocha. Once again, look at the eyes, look at the shape of the face. It seems very, very similar to me. The Hopis say that they were visited by the Kachina, these extraterrestrials, who happen to have Elvis Presley lamb chop sideburns, much like yours truly. You know, I'll just kind of throw that one out there for you. In addition to my black eye, I can also be sexy for you with sideburns. So there you go. Just like the Kachina. He's also got a really greasy mustache as well and a weird round mouth. Look at his weird little round mouth, and then look at the weird little round mouth on the Dogu. Oh, isn't that interesting? It's the same kind of thing. Now, sometimes they're drawn as more like the Oompa Loompa people. That's one of the things we're going to learn about. We have Oompa Loompas. Kind of an unfortunate case of moobs there, man boobs. You know, I wouldn't really want to have that man chest. It's, you know, and then what's up with his hips? I mean, like, is he got growths or what is that? But anyway, his face is all weird, and this is, again, a sculpture of these weird little beings that came out and talked to them. And then this one, this is probably a little bit more stylized. This is one you probably always see on Ancient Aliens. They kind of this is not probably a first-hand eyewitness thing, but based on stories. And now the eyes have taken over the whole face, and there's no mouth anymore. But again, the point is that they have very prominent eyes. And then Dogu, right? The name Dogu is very similar to an African ET called Dogon. There's a whole visitor called the Dogon, and this is a sculpture of the Dogon. He's tall. He's got a funny little face. He's got weird sideburns or like some kind of helmet on again. He's got eyes like a gray, and he's got the weird round little mouth. So, you know, not all grays are bad, and I don't believe that. The Aborigines were contacted by wonderful beings who really helped them that they called the Wangina, and this was the drawing of the Wangina. So if somebody says, the resemblance is clear, that I look like the gray, okay, I get it. Everybody likes to say that. Thank you. So anyway, the Wangina is like the Dogu or the Dogon. It's the same kind of thing. They got the same weird eyes. They got this halo around them again, which is like a light halo. Sometimes they even drew the light coming off of them. So this is a worldwide, consistent contact experience. And that looks like something right out of Pink Floyd The Wall or Edvard Munch's The Scream, right? All of this is very, very similar to the Japanese Dogu. Well, aren't you happy you learned this? I mean, we're really starting to connect some dots here. This is a uniform contact protocol that happened all over the planet with beings who look similar. And what's so important about the Japan case is that they taught us how to defeat the demonic. They have very specific protocols, and one of the main protocols is that you open up your house. I forget if it's once a year or more than that, but you got to clean your whole house very much. You open up the house, you leave food out and a hot bath for your ancestors. And originally you're supposed to leave like the doors open, which means people could get in, but it was their belief that on this particular day that your ancestors will show up in person, and on an astral level they eat the food, they take a bath, and they enjoy the house. And this is a very important anti-demonic protocol because they are keeping the demons away by doing this. And so when I started to notice that there was a master here, while Beth was doing those forms, we put out this food for the master. And it had dates, and it had butter, and it had jam, and some other things. And then he started showing up. And so when I heard this Gochiso Samades thing, I mean, where would I have remembered that from? I mean, yeah, my girlfriend had obviously said it during dinner, but I didn't know what it meant, and it was so relevant to everything that's going on right now while I'm being threatened by the deep state that I have these martial arts masters in the astral plane protecting me. So another very strange element of Shinto, first of all, is like they want you to clap. So going back to the slide again, defeating the demonic, part of it is a clapping technique. So they have you do this. They have you take your hands and hold them out as wide as you can, and then bring them together and clap really hard and make those toroidal shapes I was talking about that are the shapes of consciousness, the shape of your soul, the shape of your aura. You do 3 claps. And so when I went to, for example, the Ise shrine, and I was given this thing called the Emperor's Welcome, which apparently doesn't usually happen for white people. I had all these Japanese looking at me through the fence like this, all really, because how did the white guy get in there to get the Emperor's Welcome? Well, I was, they knew I was Egakeishi reincarnated, as they would say. That's what happened. I got into the Emperor's Welcome. So I had to clap 3 times and say a prayer, and then you leave. It was very exciting in many ways, but I didn't know how important it was until I was in the middle of the circle. And then my interpreter leans over and says, "Oh, this is the Emperor's Welcome. It's the highest honor they can give you in Japan." I'm like, well, I kind of would have liked to have savored this and kind of known that when I wrote in the book that it was, the Emperor's Welcome that I was writing about. But anyway, it was amazing. Once I found out, and that's why all the people are staring at me, it's like, oh, okay. So clapping is very important, and one of the core principles of Shinto is actually the use of acupuncture. So what they do is they have these needles that they put into your body, just like Chinese acupuncture, except that in Shinto acupuncture, you get needles all over your body. It's not a nice, easy acupuncture where you get one needle in one place and they leave it there for a while. No, dude. This is like you're just getting stabbed all the time, and then they find the parts of your body that hurt you the most, that make you scream and cry the most, and they keep stabbing you there. So mine was on the side of my eyes, and I don't want to give them all away. That's just one of them. I'm not going to say what they are because then somebody could torture me, right? No, it's bad. I mean, Shinto acupuncture is it will teach you how to cope with pain. When I had a laceration on my pinky here, this did not hurt as much as Shinto acupuncture. I remember leaving a puddle of tears on the table that was like 5 inches wide because I'm just like I'm just writhing from the pain of this thing. But what they teach is that the demonic creates habitats in your body through rotting tissue. This is a very important element, and it's also the same with your brain. In the case of the brain of the psychopath, they have these 17 anomalous areas of the brain, the hippocampus, all the frontal lobes, so many things, the striatum, and most of the 17 regions, all but a few, are significantly rotten. And so there are people whose brains have they have rotting, smelly, if you could actually get it out, it would smell bad, and it's in the brain. And when you are a psychopath, you have these certain characteristics, which we talk about in the Sacred Science course, and I talk about it, in previous videos I've done. So psychopathy is related to rotting brain tissue. Well, Michael, when I got into this Michael prophecies, he was having me very much focus on stretching, yoga, and massage. And therapeutic massage is where you have these areas of knots in your muscles, and there's actual atrophy in there. There's no blood flow, and you start to get smelly, rotting tissue in your muscles. And the only way you can open that stuff up is to massage it, but if you have painful lumps in your body, if you have painful knots in your muscle tissue, okay, what that's telling you is that there is a habitat for demonic entities. Let's say that the original place that the rotting tissue started from was that you got injured. And let's say that in the injury you had bad things happen to you. Well, guess what? The bad things that happen to you can anchor into that injury. So like if somebody punches you, it could get anchored into your tissue, and then there's damage in the tissue, and it might stay in there and stay rotten for years. And in the Shinto tradition, there is a negative spiritual being that lives in those rotting areas. And so part of what happens is when you're getting pricked with that needle, you're flinching, and it brings blood flow into the stuck areas. And a good Shinto acupuncturist is looking for the weaknesses in your aura. These places where there's rotting tissue in your body are habitats for demons. That's what they taught in Shinto. And again, who gave it to them? The Dogu. This is extraterrestrial derived knowledge. the Dogu told them to, use this. You don't have to use acupuncture. It's painful. But again, Edgar Casey's readings recommended therapeutic massage. You get a roller on the floor. I have one right over there. The yoga roller, it's like about this big. I forget what it's called, therapeutic foam roller, something like that. But anyway, the point is, you definitely want to be stretching. And the more that you just sit in a chair and you don't use your body, the more that this rotting begins to happen in your brain and in your body. And it again creates a habitat for negative entities. We'll get back to that a little later, but another weird thing about Shinto is that a sudden fire, a sudden explosion, a sudden loud noise, and painful events in our lives, sudden painful events, all of these things can drive out negative entities. So when my Shinto guy saw that we had a fire at the Fellowship of the Inner Light, the daughter of one of the friends of mine had left a candle lit upstairs in the altar room, and then we had this really big fireball. I don't know how it happened, but like something blew up and it created a boom, and it was a loud boom and there was fire, and we put it out. Thankfully there was no real structural damage, but it was, his view as a Shinto guy was that this had driven away negative entities and spirits that were around the church. So again, these things might happen on their own. I had one happen to me where I got hit by a car. This guy backed up 70 feet uphill and hit my car, and he wasn't looking where he was going. I was screaming at him, and he just hit the car. So this was another example of a boom and a painful event. And sure enough, that was a big part of me like getting out to do the video the last time. I was just so upset before he hit me, and then it just kind of like brought it all to a head. Shinto also uses incense, and there's other techniques as well. They have their own form of chanting that's really cool, and maybe we'll get into that later. But so I was out there, and I really got to see this by going to the shrines. And another really interesting thing is that Hideo was the name of the guy doing the treatments. Hideo told me that, you don't, well, actually, no, my own dreams, Archangel Michael told me, do not be asleep while Hideo was giving people these treatments. Do not be lying asleep in bed, because these entities are going to get into your dreams. And so I mostly followed that protocol, but occasionally I screwed up, and he was staying at my house and giving people treatments out of my other bedroom. And these entities would get into my dreams, and I'd have to fight these horrible negative entities. I mean, he claimed that when he was working on people with the needles, that they would be in agony, and that he would see their faces shapeshift into demonic imagery that was very different than a normal human face. And that was what was happening as the demon was leaving their body. So this is a leftover teaching from the original ETs that contact the Japanese. They preserved meticulously all of the teachings. And it's all about negative entities and repelling them. And so one of the things that you see at every Shinto shrine is a bell. They ring the bell. And the bell or the gong is one of the main things. The vibrations apparently get rid of these negative entities. So then, to really bring it into what the Law of One says, Law of One recommends that we use cut garlic and salt. So I wanted to read you this because I've never done this before, but this is amazing. And we're going to discuss it as we go. And hopefully I can get done 2.5 hours. I think I totally can. The new room that we choose for where we're moving, which ended up being, I lived there, for a couple years, will of course be carefully cleaned and the marred surfaces made well. Is there anything else Ra could suggest about how to repel negative entities? And he says, we scan your recent memory configurations. Firstly, there has been some less than harmonious interaction within this dwelling. The dynamics of this interaction were potent enough to attract a lesser thought form. So later on, you're going to hear it called an elemental. They also call them, lower astrals, negative entities. They don't usually use the word demons in the Law of One. They probably think that word is too scary and harsh. But anyway, they had an argument. That's what this means, a less than harmonious interaction. Somebody says this for entertainment purposes only. No, this is not true. This is very, very real. You have to understand there's people, these entities do exist. They have their own plane of existence. They want to get in here, and you don't usually see them unless you engage in really dark practices, but they will influence you to make you have negative thoughts, to make you hate yourself, to make you veer in a direction that's negative so that you'll become more argumentative, more fearful, more anxious, more sad, more afraid. It's a basic spiritual principle that the Shinto teachings also give us. And so, no, I don't believe this is fake, and I don't believe this is for entertainment purposes only. I believe that Shinto practitioners are seeing your acupuncture meridians. They put needles in where the light is weak. As they get the atrophied tissue to have blood flow, which is often caused by spasming, the negative entities go away. And when I was sleeping in the other room, I would get hit with this stuff, and I'm telling you, you do not want to fight one of these entities that's just been released out of a human being 5 feet away from you across the room in the next wall over. They can get right through the wall, and they come into your dream, and I've had to fight them, and I'm telling you, it's scary as hell. I had some very, 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 very bad experiences of getting these entities that he was releasing from people to show up in my dreams. Now, at some point, we're going to learn to respect the spiritual traditions of the world, but right now they are not taken seriously, and that's part of why nobody understands the deep state. Nobody really thinks that any of this stuff that they're doing matters. But again, they did something on the Eclipse, they fired up CERN, and now we're seeing that they're trying to start World War III. Just so happens, a couple days later, that's what they're doing. So I want to teach you things that you may think are phony and you may think are joking around or entertainment only, but this is what a lot of people believe. And if you practice this stuff, it helps you, okay? So that's what I want to focus on. If people are arguing, if people are being jerks, less than harmonious interactions, what that means, and this actually attracted a lesser thought form. So whether you want to see this as real or not, I'm going to show you what the Law of One teaches us about having an argument and attracting a lower thought form, okay? Therefore, we suggest the salting and ritual cleansing by blessed water of all windows and doorways which offer added into the domicile or any outbuildings thereof. Further, we suggest the hanging of cut garlic cloves in the portion of the room which has accommodated those whose enjoyment has turned into a darker emotion, which again was this bad argument they had, centering upon the area we find you call the wet bar, also the room intended for sleeping found near the kitchen area. So, to summarize what you're seeing here, they had a really bad argument. They were yelling at each other. At the end of every single session of Law of One, Archangel Michael says, preserve your harmony above all else. The real key to the universe is it's a holographic construct of a loving consciousness. It's only love. And so when you are not in love, when you are outside of love, when you're in that big, nasty, horrible argument, the less than harmonious interaction, the holographic universe, because everything is alive and everything creates a being, as you are having that nasty argument and getting nasty to each other, these beings are attracted. And they very specifically, as you're going to hear, get attracted into rotting, dirty, nasty stuff. If something is rotty, dirty, and nasty, if it smells bad, in this weird cosmic universe where nothing really exists, the rotting stuff is how these entities can get into our reality. Telepathically, and if there's enough people focused on it the right way, physically. Okay? They get in through the rotting stuff. They get in through the rotting tissues in your body. So when you get massage work done and then you're working on that area, you might remember the trauma that happened where you got punched in that part of your body, and that's called a somatic or body memory. Somatic memories are very common. Most PTSD, most traumatic events in your life become associated with a traumatic injury. I just went through this crazy trauma. I squeezed my eye. Now I have this traumatic eye injury for a little while. But it happens. So again, these entities are real, and then if they find this rotting tissue, they can stay in there. And now they have like a way in. They have an anchor in your body. And this shows up as thoughts that are going to make you feel sad. They're going to make you hate yourself. They're going to make you feel like you're not a good person. They're going to make you feel afraid. They're going to make you feel angry. It can come through that part of your body. And in fact, these parts of your body are where you carry tension. So yes, as you work out the knots in your muscles, you become more relaxed. And you can do this at home through stretching, through yoga, Pilates. There's lots of different ways to do it. Massage is probably the fastest way. But again, it's all about the rotting tissue. It's very important. So they want to hang garlic, and they're going to explain why in a little bit. The appropriate words used to bid farewell to the lows of the lower astral shall be used, which they give you what to say a little later. I'm going to read that to you. It's fascinating. In connection with the hanging of garlic cloves for about 36 hours, We believe that this is equivalent to 2 of your night periods and 1 of your lit periods. This should cleanse the house as you find it to the extent that it is neutral in its vibrations. So, again, there's probably some pimple-popping adolescents over here who think this is all laughter and fun and games. There's other people who are very afraid of demonic entities, and they're very afraid of being attacked spiritually, and there's starting to be strange things happening to them. Weird, bad things are happening, coincidences that are not good, people getting angry, people losing their temper. If you start to believe that all of these weird things are because there is some type of negative entity coming through, the law of one is telling you what to do about it. And you got to hang garlic. That's a very big part of the process. And, they say that this really, really upsets the negative entity. So if you want to try this, your spouse might get mad, but okay, well, then we shouldn't have been fighting in the first place. We suggest that you then request of this living entity, which is now, they're talking about the entity of garlic and the entity of salt, that the garlic and the salt will now welcome, and the water, will welcome and absorb the vibrations of harmony, love, and thanksgiving, joy, which this group shall then, as the incarnation proceeds, offer to the domicile. So again, the title of the talk starts with joy. Joy defeating the demonic. So that's the teaching right there. The way that you get rid of the entity is by welcoming in harmony, love, and thanksgiving. The universe is holographic. All it's interested in is your state of mind, ultimately. If you're in a loving, positive state, then you're going to amass universal energy for the positive. If you're in a negative state, then these negative entities or demons can attack you, and they can make you feel bad about yourself, and they can make you have strong anxiety, strong amounts of fear, and they can have bad things happen to you physically. You might hurt yourself somehow. This could all be the result of a negative telepathic influence, according to the law of one. So if you don't want to believe me, that's fine, but I'm going to keep teaching this for the people who are interested in it. And most of you are. It's very few who have these rude reactions, but that's okay. Rudeness is part of how people cope with the truth. I get it. All right, here we go. And Cami Gontier, light and love, thank you for the donation. I am assuming we would prepare the blessed water the same as we prepare water for Carla to drink after a session. And we would wipe the windows and the doors with the water. We'd have to do it with a bucket, I guess. Is this correct? And what was meant by salting the windows and doors? And they give a very different answer than what he's thinking. Firstly, you may bless the water yourselves, or you may request a so-called holy water from any blessed place. A typical Catholic church would be great. That is blessed by intention. It's whatever works for you. You can do it yourself. You just have to have a clear intention, a high spiritual vibration. Secondly, the water shall be carefully shaken from your fingers along your window sills and doors once you open them. So this is very similar to the Shinto protocol, except that now you're opening the windows and you're adding this extra element of dropping holy water that you've blessed yourself or you got from a place that blessed it. You drop it along the windowsills because the entities will come into your house through the windows, apparently. This is what they're saying. Thirdly, prior to the sprinkling of this cleansing, blessing sacrament of water, so before you even do the water, you have to do salt first. You trail the salt along your windowsills in a line, and again, you allow it to exist in this configuration for 36 to 48 hours. So the first thing you have to do is hang the cut garlic and then drop these lines of salt along the windowsills. And I guess you're supposed to leave the windows open 36 to 48 hours. You have to be in the right climate to do that. You may not need to leave them open all the time. This is only if you have what you think is a really, really bad demonic infestation. This is like the ultimate anti-demonic protocol. That's why I want to share it with you, because nothing else gets a bigger strength than this, apparently, according to the law of one. So I wanted you to know what it is. I've done it before. Then you have to go get a brand new broom. So you have to go to, whatever hardware store of your choice. You have to buy a new broom. So the ingredient list includes garlic, sea salt, and then a fresh new broom that you only use this one time, basically, for this one practice. Then you can just get rid of it or use it for, sweeping again. Maybe they're trying to give you a hint that you should clean the house. You get a virgin broom and you ritually sweep the salt out of each window and doorway. So you can just get a little hand broom, but it has to be new. sweeping with each stroke the less fortunate vibrations within the dwelling, which might find coexistence with your group difficult. So you basically want to bless whatever arguments you had, whatever is the negative energy going on. And as you clean the house, and this is really just a symbolic practice to get you cleaning your house. And they explain later on, the most important anti-demonic protocol there is to simply clean your house. There's really nothing more valuable you can do, because any dirt that you have is a place the negative can stay. So if you get rid of it, then you're going to have a much cleaner house. And I've had to do this in order to do these videos. Michael wouldn't even allow me to go on camera until I'd done certain amounts of cleaning first because of this problem. So the virgin broom sweeps the salt out of each window. So I guess if you're going to do the windows, you got to have it be a pretty small broom or it's not going to work. And then he says, I assume you mean that we should put the salt on the outer doors only and not the inner doors of the house. Is that correct? And he says, oh, this is correct. Okay, so I guess you don't have to leave the windows open. You put it on the outside. That's interesting. I hadn't realized that. Because, you know, I did this once, but it was a long time ago. I don't usually go through all this, but, you know, you can. We cannot express the nature of salt and water and garlic with enough clarity to inform you as to the efficacy with which salt absorbs vibrations that have been requested to move into salt when salt has been given water. So again, you draw these lines of salt, you hang up the garlic, and then after the 36 hours, that's when you put the water on it. And the throwing of the holy water, as it hits the salt, it captures these energies. It captures lower astrals, and it defeats them. Just like the garlic, they can't live around the garlic. So it sounds really crazy, but hey, if you feel nervous or you want to try this, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. You might even like it. We cannot express to you the full magical nature of water, nor can we express the likeness and attractiveness of the garlic cut to lower astral forms, as in they do not like it and it is not attractive. The attractiveness is negative. No service to self astral form will accept coexistence with cut garlic. So isn't it interesting that this is actually apparently true according to Law of One, and it's the classic vampire repeller. Hang the garlic. Well, yeah, negative entities don't like garlic. So isn't that fascinating? It's not that hard. You just put some salt around your windows, hang up the garlic, 36 hours later, throw some water on it, and you got to do this prayer that they're going to tell you what the prayer is. And we'll do it together. Oops, that's the next sentence that I got over here. Therefore, we offer these suggestions. We also request carefully that the broom has to be clean. So you don't have to get a brand new broom, but it at least has to be very clean, no dirt on it. And that the garlic, after you're finished, is burned. And they actually tell you to eat the garlic. So burn it as in cook it. You have to cook the garlic, and then you eat the garlic. This is another part of the whole protocol. The virginity of the broom is most efficacious. In other words, if you get a brand new broom with no dirt on it, that's the best way to go. So he's trying to figure this out. Let me see if I got this correct. I'll repeat my version of it. We hang fresh cut garlic in the area of the wet bar and the area of the bedroom that was adjacent to the kitchen area where we had this big argument. We would salt all the windowsills and all the outer door windowsills on the wall, and then sprinkle blessed water from our fingers on all the salted areas at the end. We would then say the appropriate words which you're going to give us to bid farewell to lower astrals. Those words I am not sure of. Would you comment on the scenario I've just stated? And Ra says, your grasp of our suggestions is good. We note that the salt be poured in the straight line with no gaps. Interesting. So you got to get a big bag of it, I guess. There are various ritual words of blessing and farewell to the entities, such as the ones you are removing. And we might suggest the following. And again, I might recommend write this stuff down if you want to. You can pause the video, you can write it down, and you can actually do this practice. Again, there's some teenagers who don't think demons are ever going to bother them at all. That's fine, but if you are worried about this, they're telling you this is the best thing to do. So I assume that it really works, and it has a lot of similarities to the Shinto stuff as well. So this is the words they suggest to use. When you first lay the salt, repeat the following. And let's all do this together right now. You can read it with me. We'll do it together. I'll do it nice and slow. We praise the one Creator, which gave to salt the ability to enable those friends to which we wish to bid farewell to find a new home As the water is sprinkled at the end of the ceremony after 36 hours, then you say, "We give thanks to the one Creator for the gift of water. Over it, the Creator moves its hand and stirs its will to be done." Hey, they're telling you this is going to work. I'd say go for it. Oh, another little extra line there. The hanging of the cut garlic, which I guess you do after the salt, may be accompanied by these words. Here we go. "We praise the one Creator for the gift of garlic and bless its ability to offer to those friends to whom we wish to bid farewell the arrow which points their way of egress." And you probably have to write it down, read it off the paper. That's okay. You don't have to memorize it. You can read it off the paper. When the sweeping is done, you may say in conclusion, "We praise the one Creator and give thanksgiving for the spiritual cleanliness of this dwelling place." As the garlic is burned, you may say, "We give thanks to the one Creator for the gift of spiritual cleanliness in our dwelling place, and seal the departure of all those who have left by this exit, by the consuming of this substance." And probably you want to say, "and so it is." And we're already getting into prayer mode now. Is any place more appropriate than another to hang garlic in the rooms, for instance, over your windows or anything like that? I know it's supposed to be hung in the area of the bar, but I meant the bedroom. Is there any more place appropriate than another? And he says, "The windows and the doorways are most appropriate." Ah, interesting. "And in addition, we suggest the salting and sprinkling of any door which may lead elsewhere than out of the dwelling." Ah, the doorways inside the house, in order to afford to the entities the understanding that they are not desired to move to another room inside your house. That's a good idea. Don't let them hide out somewhere else. "I am assuming that the newly chosen place meets the parameters for the best contact on the exterior of the house. I would ask you at this time if there's any suggestions with respect to our house exterior." And he says, "The dwelling seems surrounded with trees and fields of your countryside. This is acceptable." So again, one of the underlying points I wanted to get to here, and I'm going to try to get it done in 2.5 hours. We're not going to quite make it, but we'll get close. But being in nature is very, very important because, as they're about to explain, trees are alive. They are second density beings, and they shoot out this energy that fights off the demonic. So if you live in a city, you're going to have a lot more demonic influence because the demonic influence has to be fought against by natural energy, things like plants. And they tell you, as you're going to see here, they want you to do gardening. They want you to actually build things that are beautiful. As you put your intention into various parts of the house that are like altars or displays of various objects, inside and outside, those apparently repel negative entities. So gardening is a very, very good anti-demonic protocol. We suggest the general principle of preparing each part of your environment as it best suits each in the group with the beauty that you may feel to be appropriate, such as gardening, altars in the house. There is much of blessing in the gardening and in the care of your surroundings. So you notice here that I like to have a set. I like to, design this and have fun things in the background. Well, that's all part of the anti-demonic protocol. If I was just sitting in a room with a white wall, it's not very good. You got to spice things up a bit, right? For when this is accomplished in love of the creation, the second density flowers, plants, and small animals are aware of your service and they return it. And therefore, in context, they drive off negative entities. So walking in nature is very important. Getting sunlight on your skin, not only for the vitamin D, there's energetic benefits of the biophotons. That's a living thing too, so you don't want to stay inside all day. You got to get out there. You got to walk around. You got to use your body. That way you don't get these muscle knots where demons can live. And as you exercise your body and you go walking, the natural energy of the plants and the trees around you and the animals around you will feed you back energy that drives those entities out of the muscle knots in your body and the lesions in your brain if you have any. So this is very cool. That nature actually feeds you in a way that repels negative entities. That's why all these masters are up in the mountains. In general, and they're summarizing this, we're now jumping ahead by several questions. The most helpful thing you can do is clean the darn house. Okay, so you don't have to do all of the ceremony if you don't want to. You don't have to do all the salt and the garlic and saying those prayers. But it's very, very important that you not allow dirt to accumulate in your house and that you do so with a prayerful, loving attitude. And as you do this, you'll have breakthroughs in your own life. You could suddenly end up making money. Things can happen spontaneously once you dissipate these negative entities. And again, people can laugh at me, but try it out. See what happens when you get your whole house really clean and how your life starts changing for the positive. This is because negative entities need dirt to influence you, and they very much will. If you don't clean up, they will. So the most important thing is to have a clean house. That's it. And my mom was always very into a clean house. And I think instinctively we knew this. The removal from the mind complex of those thoughts not of harmony is most helpful. So you want to be as happy as you can. And those practices that increase faith and will, that the spirit may do its work, are most helpful. So that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm giving you practices that increase your faith and will so that you can have the most helpful situation against these types of negative influences. Okay, so just to show you how big the negative is, on one point here he says, I've heard there are 7 astral and 7 devachanic primary spiritual levels, 4 negative and positive, actually. These are called the bardos in Tibetan history. Is this correct? And he says, yes, you speak of some of the more large distinctions and levels in your inner planes. That is correct. So then we get a really interesting thing about Hitler here. Can you tell us what happened to Hitler? And then he says, the mind-body-spirit complex known as Adolf is at this time in a healing process in the middle astral planes of your spherical force field. This entity was greatly confused, and although aware of the circumstance of change in vibrational level accompanied with the loss of the body, he nevertheless needed a great deal of care. So now, I want you to think about this really heavily. The middle planes of the spherical force field, the middle astral planes, they didn't say lower or higher. So it's very likely that if you were Hitler, that you're going to experience torture after this physical lifetime that you did in the bardo. You're going to go into hell. And according to law of one, there is such a thing as hell if you can understand that it's a dreamlike holographic reality that has 7 main levels that you can get stuck in, and you can appear to be getting tortured to death, and your body's getting ripped apart, and it might even happen over and over again. That's probably part of what they're talking about with Hitler going through this healing process. However, nobody actually stays in hell forever, and you eventually go through counseling and rehabilitation, and you end up going back on the road to the one. So the law of one's message is a lot different than most typical religions, because they say everybody goes back to the one, everybody is rescued by whatever you want to call it, the creator, God. Nobody is lost. No part of the creation is lost. Everything reunifies back into oneness, and therefore bad karma is teaching us how to become more loving by showing us the negativity, mirroring it back to ourselves. And a lot of times negative entities are allowed to deliver our bad karma. They're always kept in certain strict limits, but like when you cut your finger, when you crash your car, these might be negative entities that are causing this to happen, that are influencing you from these inner planes of the earth that are not really physical. They're very interested in us because we are more physical than they are. And so they want to be here. So they're always watching us. Both positive and negative entities are always watching us. And if you have negative thoughts, negative entities strengthen that, and positive entities strengthen positive thoughts. But the negative entities can make you a lot less sad. They can hurt you a lot less if you don't give them habitats in your body and in your house, which again is why cleaning is the main thing. But they are real, and Hitler was taken down to this lower astral place where he's probably being tortured because of what he did. And so if there's people in the deep state now who are worried that this might happen to them, all you have to do is be a hero, and then you don't have to go to hell. If you're a hero and you decide to do the right thing and you decide not to play into the stupid extraterrestrial game from these jerks from Zeta Reticuli who come over here to farm humans, I mean, give me a break. I don't care if Lom shows up. I'm going to send him away. I'm going to put salt in front of the windows, whatever I have to do. But I mean, the point is, I'm not playing along with this stuff. They can try to send things after me. They can try to do a big ceremony and target CPAP, the enemy of Ra. Nothing has happened. I'm doing pretty well. You know, I mean, yeah, I got an eye injury and, you know, I have no money and things suck, but whatever. I see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, using colloquialism. And I want to read you a little bit more of this Law of One stuff because we're basically out of time now. The domicile in question has already been offered a small amount of blessing by this group through its presence, and as we have previously stated, each of your days spent in love, harmony, and thanksgiving will continue to transform your house. It is correct, as we have previously stated, that physical cleanliness is most important. So there's literally no bigger Law of One anti-demonic protocol than that. Therefore, the efforts shall be made to most thoroughly cleanse the dwelling. In this regard, it is to be noted that neither in the dwelling as a whole, there you now reside, or in the chamber of this working, is there an absence of your dust, earth, and other detritus, which is in toto called dirt. So they're dissing them, saying, your house is dirty, man. If the intention is to clean as much as is physically possible the location, then your requirements, your anti-demonic requirements for physical cleanliness are fulfilled. It is only when a lower astral entity has, shall we say, placed portions of itself in the so-called dirt that care should be taken to remove the sentient being, and we have already given you these instructions. Wow! The lower astral entity actually places portions of itself into the dirt. Part of the demon is stored in the dirt, which could be in your body. Another big one is your colon. If you have adhesions of fecal matter inside your colon, it gets stored in there. So the Casey readings, again, are all about colon health, eating the right food, having colonics, which is the hydrotherapy, where you wash this stuff out of your colon. That can actually make a really big difference. People who have chronic problems start getting colonics, and it's amazing. You might have fecal matter in there. It's been there for 20 years. And as it says right here in this quote, there are negative entities that places portions of itself into these areas of poop inside your colon, or knots in your muscles, or stuff in your brain, or the dirt in your house. So when you clean the dirt, you're actually removing these negative spiritual influences, which mean you're going to be happier, you're going to feel better, everybody's going to get along better, you're not going to have as many arguments. I mean, that's basically what the Shinto stuff teaches us. It's slightly different, but it's the same basic principle. Clean your house, leave the doors and windows open, leave out the food and water for your ancestral spirits. And then I hear Gochiso Samades in my mind. I'm like, what the hell? And I look it up. I am your local ancestor. Holy crap. I said, well, okay, he wants me to do a show about Shinto. It's some kind of Shinto spirit coming in because we got 1 million views in Japan and we're getting a deal with the Japanese government. It's amazing. All this stuff is happening at the same time. May we note that just as each entity strives in each moment to become more nearly one with the Creator but falls short, just so is physical spotlessness striven for but can never be achieved. So you have to forgive yourself. Don't go crazy. Just get it close enough. In each case, it is the purity of your intention and the thoroughness of your manifestation that are appreciated. The variance between your attempt and your goal is never noted, and it may be considered unimportant. So just do your best, and it's going to work. So then, session 77, I have 3 questions that Carla asked me to ask, and I'll get them out of the way. She wants to know if her preparation for going to the hospital could be improved the next time around. And he says, all was done well with one exception. The instrument was instructed to spend some time contemplating itself as the Creator. Because again, in the Law of One, there's only one of us here. We are all the Christ. The Christ is the universe. That's all there is. You could call it Christ. You call it Allah. You call it Buddha mind. It's 3 words for exactly the same thing. Okay? And we don't need to fight about them. It's the same thing. I mean, the Law of One ultimately defaults to Christianity, but all the others have aspects of the truth. This done in a more determined fashion would be beneficial at times when your mind is weakened by severe assaults upon your body towards pain. So that's when you want to be most apt to think harmonious thoughts, is when you're in physical pain. There is no necessity to have negative thought forms regardless of how much pain you are in. And that's something most of us don't do. We love to say curse words. We love to yell and get angry and feel sad. The elimination of these negative thought forms when you're in pain creates a lack of possibility for negative elementals, and other negative entities to use these thought forms to create the worsening of your mind's deviation from your normal cheerfulness and to that of anxiety. So they're directly saying here that when you are in pain, when you're experiencing physical pain, which again could involve a habitat they can get in because a part of your body has weak light. If you're angry about it, and if you're pissed off about it, and if you're yelling about it, you're creating the habitat for them to exist in. And what they, again, always want you to do in the law of one, everything steers you back to love, happiness, peace, and tranquility. You're always trying to get along with other people. You don't want to attack other people. You try to, if you got to talk about something that bothers you, you try to do it without arguing, because again, one argument allowed this negative entity to come in and occupy all this space of teaching in the law of one. And Corey Good, at our talk coming up here at this conference, he's going to be focusing on this anti-demonic stuff, because when you're out in the public like he is and like I am, you get hit with this stuff way more. And weird things are happening to you. People call you, you get this bad news, all these things are happening at the same time. You get a lawsuit over here, a lawsuit over there, you got a car crash over here, you got health problems over here, 5 feet of snow, 5-day blackout, no power, washing your hands, cooking food, cooking hot dogs for breakfast. I mean, this is what I've been going through. It's crazy, all the weird negative stuff that's happening. So you want to, and again, I cleaned the house thoroughly before I did this show. And I wasn't even sure I was going to do a show. I just knew I needed to clean the house first. Anytime we're going through this stuff on a global level, it's a really good idea to clean the house, even if you don't do all the stuff with salt, garlic, and water. And again, you don't want to deviate from being cheerful. If you deviate into anxiety, these entities are causing that. They will strengthen that within you, always. That's just the way the universe works. Can you please tell us the source of this bad smell in the room this morning? And it smells like rotting death flesh, as you're about to hear. There are 2 components to this odor. One is, as has been surmised, the decomposing physical vehicle of one of your second density rodentia, or a mouse, a dead mouse. So there's a horrible frickin' dead rotting mouse smell, okay? And I've had plenty of these down here. I've had all these moths down here, as I was saying before, because a mouse died down here somewhere, and it was, I don't want to go into it, but thankfully all the moths are almost gone. So again, one of the sources of the bad smell is a dead body. This is very important, because in ceremonies, these evil ceremonies, somebody might end up dead or tortured. Okay, so the dead body is very critical. And then what does it say? With the dead mouse body, an elemental is attempting to take up residence within the putrefying remains of this small creature. The cleansing of the room and the burning of the incense has discouraged the elemental. The process of decomposition shall, in a short period of your space-time, remove the less than harmonious sensations provided for the nose. So again, let's just really focus on the top here, which is a dead mouse body became an attempted habitat for a lower demonic entity called an elemental in this case, where it wanted to live in the putrefying remains, but by cleaning the room and burning incense, the elemental went away. And again, they said earlier you can get holy water from a Catholic church. They're burning incense in the church. The Native American tradition is about smudging, the sage smoke, or you could also use Palo Santo, this beautiful smelling wood. You could also use sweetgrass, that's another one. So sweetgrass, sage, Palo Santo, even patchouli incense I think is very good as anti-demonic because it's a very happy floral type of smell. It's got a lot of really nice floral notes in patchouli. So again, right here, they're telling you that burning incense will drive away negative entities. So if you don't want to handle the garlic, if that's too intense for you, if you don't want to smell that for a day and a half, you can burn some nice incense and just clean the house. So this is something, I recommend the house cleaning. I recommend really being honest with yourself and saying, do I have a problem? Leanne Boudreau sent me another donation, so thank you again for that. If you have not met Dave Keldelson, he resides in Colorado Springs and speaks Japanese. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be needing more interpreters. And at some point, I would really love, let's see. At some point, I would really love to go back to Japan because the shrines are just so amazing. The sacred energy that's around them is so wonderful. And I really respect the Shinto teachings, and I find it incredibly fascinating that when the Law of One teaches you about the negative and how to repel the negative, that there's such an incredible crossover with what they teach you in Shinto, including opening the windows, letting the energy in, bringing in your ancestral spirits. I get the Gochiso Samades comes into my mind, which means I am your local ancestor, clearly telling me they want me to talk about this. So I believe that I'm going to give you some homework today, okay? And the homework is go clean the house, find where the dirt is, do the best you can, burn some incense, or maybe go through the whole ceremony if it feels appropriate to you. You can clap your hands the Shinto style. I don't recommend the whole thing about loud bangs other than that. The clapping is loud enough. Fire and loud explosions may drive demons away, but they happen on their own, and you should never set them or cause them at all. Of course, that's ridiculous. I would never recommend you do anything like that. All I'm saying is it's hand clapping, it's holy water, it's salt, it's garlic, it's incense, it's simple practices, and remember, cultivating beautiful places. Make an altar. Take items in your house that are just lying around in the drawers and put them out on the shelf and make something. Because that, by doing something beautiful, you will actually create radiant energy that apparently drives off these negative entities. And especially if you live around trees, that's great. If you don't, you probably would want to at least have kind of like a decent yard, you know, and be in a nice area that's not too urban. They definitely don't want you living in a city. That's pretty important. And so the idea is to go out and garden, to go out and make outdoor displays of things that are beautiful. And I'm out there planting seeds right now. In fact, I'm going to get back to it. I have tons of wildflower seeds. And I am just seeding everything. And what happened last year, I'm going to have to film it this year because I had so many of these purple flowers. But then like 2 days later, this wind came and they all died. And I was like, why didn't I film it when they were here? So the day those flowers come out, I'm going to film it for you because I've done a lot of this already here. And now like my entire yard is filled with these incredible flowers. And that's part of the anti-demonic protocol. If these guys are going to do ceremonial magic at CERN to summon the enemy of Ra that they think looks like a gray, because that's the stuff I talk about, they don't like these videos, they don't like me. I want you to help me by cleaning your house. Because holographically, that's the best thing you can do, is to have the highest vibration possible, to not get into arguments, not get into fights, always try to take the high road. And if an argument does happen, one argument, one nasty argument where you feel sad and you're angry and you're fearful can allow these entities to start living in the dirt in your house. So cleaning the house is very, very important. And again, Archangel Michael came through in the Michael Prophecies, which I'm now selling. And this is a quote from there. This is where I had stopped before I did this show. And it was so perfect, I said, well, yeah, I'm just going to put it in the show because this is right where I stopped reading. A type of doom is taking place to satisfy mass karma, but we are going to be fine. So he says there are not enough people on your sphere who are aware of what is happening and aware that they have choices in the matter. In other words, it's not just the end of the world. Indeed, vehicles such as this book may be used through which to express the current battle plans, as it were. These are also enlightenment plans, and that is a very important distinction to make. Every time we get closer to trying to tell you the illuminating truth, which is there's only love in the universe, there's only one of us here, there are 7 more boundaries of doom that we have to cross in the public's mind. Everybody's obsessed with the fear porn. Everybody's obsessed with, oh my God, look at what's happening. They're going to keep hitting Israel over and over again, and then eventually they'll hit them with the hypersonic missiles. Maybe, maybe not. Let's try to visualize the highest outcome, because we are creators and our thoughts create reality. And so we're going to do a global meditation here in just a second where we're going to create a more positive outcome than World War III. And what they're telling us in this passage is every time we're trying to tell you, look, you guys, you're going to be okay, we got to go through 7 more boundaries of doom before you'll believe us. And then you have to couple that with the fact that the mass karma of the planet and its inhabitants now requires that some forms of doom must take place. In future moments, people will sorely need these teachings to be true. That was my subheading. In the midst of all this, then, we have a serious concern over the circumstances surrounding the viewpoints of those people so soon to experience said changes. It is for this reason that the Ascension needs to be stressed. Because that's what really this is all leading to, as I keep telling you week after week. Even though in the present moment most people might not believe this, in future moments they will sorely need something like this to be true. Well, we are in that moment now. We are in the global dark night of the soul. And the Ascension needs to be stressed. Line 2, this is not doom and gloom. It's all going to be fine, and we're going to have a massive spiritual upgrade from this. This is in order to provide that ray of hope that then lifts them up off the ground, so to speak. The Ascension is like a star from the sky that plunges down into the lake of beingness. It transforms its essence into an opalescent, luminous, vibrating body. This force is now entering your sphere at a much faster rate now, and the events in August will significantly increase the overall amount as well. Now, do I know if August is relevant anymore? I don't know. I'm not even looking that far ahead, okay? But the star from the sky that plunges down is one of an ongoing number of passages in Book 3 that are totally about the Chinese balloon being shot down. And it also is, interestingly, it's kind of a weird reference to Lucifer. Like, Lucifer has to fall so that the ascension can occur. It goes in both directions. It's polarization, right? So there's this negative stuff happening that is making people aware of evil for the first time and aware, I don't necessarily believe in negative entities, but these people are apparently appeasing them and talking to them and interacting with them in their ceremonies. And this is what they do. They come in through rotting things, dead things. They come in through dirt. They come in through mold. They come in through stuff that stinks, that's fermented, that's just bad. You don't want to let your body get stinky. You want to take a shower or a bath every day, ideally, right? That's another part of the anti-demonic protocol. If you let yourself get stinky, you're creating a habitat for these things. So, this is a very interesting thing because they're telling us that we want to stress the ascension, stress the positive, don't focus on the negative. And then there's a little more here. We encourage you to separate from mass karma. That is why tactical observations, which again, that seems to be related to the balloon as well. It was making tactical observations. A Chinese balloon, another Chinese balloon prophecy, and it's all explained in the book. There's many of them. Tactical observations regarding the nature of what is and is not about to happen, because I don't believe it's World War III, are crucial at this point. Though we understand the tendency for despair when discussing such matters, such despair is often not necessary. Yeah, a cleansing does need to be engendered, but we encourage you to separate yourself from the mass karma. Find those areas that are most productive of benevolent circumstances regarding your climate and geographical position, and surround about yourself many of the basic provisions necessary for life. So isn't it interesting that right as I'm now, I'm up to book 3, I want to do videos where I summarize each of the books, but honestly, I've been getting hit so hard by negative greeting. I'm getting pounded so hard. 5 feet of snow, blackout for 3-4 days in a row, lack of sleep. Then it hurt my eye. Oh my God, wow. But you know what? I still showed up. I still did the show. I'm not going to be vain and hide myself because I have a facial injury right now. Whatever. I needed to get this out because yes, I take bruises. Yes, I get hit by the negative. We all do. We suffer from this. We have problems caused by this. But learning about these things is very interesting because if you really understand that your body isn't really you, that you're flowing into this reality from something non-physical, your whole house and your property and everything around you is part of how that energy flows into you, just like the pyramid. And when they built the pyramids, they get this healing effect. They get, prematurely born babies are no longer dying of their ailments. They get this pyramid water and they heal. There is a healing energy in nature, and it is caused by plants and animals to some degree. And so if you create gardening and displays, then you can, have them healing you, and these plants will actually drive off the negative. So just taking a healing walk, going out in nature, having positive, uplifting thoughts, walking past the trees. As you walk past a tree, it sounds silly, but this is really, really hippie sounding stuff, right? If you love the tree loves you back and it drives away demons. So when you go out there in nature and you appreciate nature, and like with me, I'm feeding turkeys, I'm feeding crows, I'm feeding stellar jays, which are the cobalt blue birds. I'm feeding, little chickadees, chipmunks, squirrels. I can feel my turkeys. I can feel the squirrel. I can feel the crows. They start to communicate with you. It's fascinating. And they are driving off negative influences. And so, I'm going to surround all the positivity to myself as I can. If the evil people of the world are trying to summon the enemy of Ra, and they're using mass ceremonies and rocket launches and CERN and World War and Eclipse alignments with the 120-year anniversary of Lam. They're doing all this to try to target me, I guess, or I don't know. I mean, what is that? Thank you, guys. Thanks for the publicity. But, if Lam shows up, I'm going to beat his ass. I'm getting in there, man. Girlie's probably going to beat me to it, but that's what's going to happen, folks. I'm just saying, you might want to try somebody bigger next time. Anyway, We're going to do our global peace meditation now. Thank you guys for being here with me. Thank you for being here today. Let's read a couple of comments. Miranda Anderson says, "You are beautiful, David. I can fairly see it. I didn't notice until you said something. It's not that bad." Oh, about the eye. Thank you so much for your help and info, and I hope to see you at the conference. Well, yeah, if you come to the conference, you're going to see me. It's going to be good. I hope that I'll be able to meet everybody. Just don't anybody spoil it for everybody else, please. So thank you for sharing your knowledge. And then my ears buzz, higher vibration. When I shower, I turn to purple. Namaste. Well, that could be the result of certain psychoactive drugs. But hey, if you can shower and turn purple, that's freaking awesome. Can we all make a meditation for Klaus Schwab? He is in the hospital. I hope he is not one of the evil people. In that case, I don't want a meditation, says Adam Weishaupt. Yeah, right. That's a troll. Weishaupt is the original founder of the Illuminati. So we know what you're doing. Jay Parsons donated $100. Wow, thank you. Thanks for the info and your work, brother. Light and love. David says Richard Bryan. Scarlet Fire says, first we overlook evil, then we permit evil, then we legalize evil, then we promote evil, then we celebrate evil, then we persecute those who still call it evil. Dwight Longnecker. Father Dwight Longnecker. What an unfortunate name. Could you imagine having that name? Growing up in high school. Oh my God. You guys are so awesome. I really want to thank you. Everybody is so great. And Melissa Musha 999, thank you for the donation. The eclipse came and went and we survived. That is so true, right? I mean, like, wow. We actually survived this whole thing. Nothing bad happened. They probably did want things to happen. They're trying to get something going right now, but it isn't turning out that way. And we're about to fix that with a nice global meditation. So let's do that and try to keep it to 3 hours. And I only got 246 here, so I'm good. All right, let me get in front of camera 3, which I didn't really want to use too much today because I got a blown out eye socket. And now when I zoom in on it, oh yeah, look at that thing. Oh my God. Right, okay, well, that's all right. So my face turns white when I'm in focus. Those are called focus lines. Everybody who wants to really get this depth of field effect to work, you got to get a viewfinder above the camera, and then you turn on your focus lines, or focus assist, it's also called, make the color white. And your face has to be totally white. So like I'm in focus right here. My nose is out of focus, but this part of my face is. And then if I go back like this, you notice how my face gets blurry. Well, so I got to sit really still when I do these meditations, or else I go out of focus. So I try to do that. But anyway, I'm just giving you a little technical notes about how this really works. Depth of field is something I love to play around with, but it can actually be, inches of sensitivity in terms of where you hold your head. And it can end up giving you a big pain in the neck. Karen Ackerman says, I had to laugh at how you explained how you had to later up to be inside your home. I didn't notice your eye. I don't know how people mention that. The wacky world of Wilcock. It's an enormous pleasure to watch your live streams. You enlighten me and answer my deepest questions about life and where to put my faith. Thank you. Do not get lost. A huge hug. It's called aging. No, I actually did squeeze this thing on my eye, and I got a big saggy bag that wasn't there, but whatever, I'm here. Come visit Iceland. Let's set up an event there. Well, Iceland's pretty wild. Yeah, I have to think about that one. But, lots of fun things to do, and Iceland has, some really, really amazing stuff. I just finished Michael Book 2. Yes, thank you. That's awesome. I love and appreciate your vibes, says Karen Ackerman. When I'm on mushrooms, I love trees, says Kickin' Rockin' South Dakota. Well, yeah, I mean, when people take these certain types of medications, they become much more aware of the energy of plants. And like, I remember when I took entheogens, I'd see all these grid patterns on the leaves, and the geometry of the tree would be part of what would lure me in and make me experience the love of the tree. The tree creates beauty. So making your trees as beautiful as possible. In Japan, of course, they have the bonsai. They have manicuring. In fact, even things like tangerines, apples, all these different trees in Japan, they manicure their yards very precisely. Everything looks so beautiful. And that's part of what the Dogu taught them, these Shinto gods. All right, without further ado, I want to get us into the mass meditation here. So let's do that. And there's our title slate for the meditation. All right. Let's see what I'm going to do here. Okay, great. Okay, let's make sure that my face is all crazy white, which doesn't look good to me, but it does to you. Here we go. There it is. I'm right in the middle now. Okay, I'd like you to put both feet flat on the floor. Take a nice deep breath. Just let yourself breathe deeply. Breathing in what the Hindus call prana, the light of the universe, the healing light that is all around us. Breathing in the healing light that forms in the center of the pyramid, which means light in the middle. The glowing light in the pyramid is a healing energy, harnessed by many things, including arched rooftops, stones, obelisks, gongs, drums, musical instruments, and they can even be made by the sound of our own chanting, by our clapping. We can create these energetic structures that protect us. We can set our intention, we can burn incense, we can use holy water, we can use garlic, salt. And most importantly, feeling the joy of having a clean space, knowing that we have all that it takes within us to be able to make our house truly beautiful. We don't need a lot of money. There's items that we can buy as we keep breathing and deeply relaxing. Think about beautiful things you can buy that are not even expensive. And you can put these beautiful things in various places in your house and create something that you love to look at. And in so doing, perhaps what you are doing now is experiencing something more, experiencing a repellent force that takes the energies of death, disease, rotting, and dirt and transmutes them with love, joy, peace, thanksgiving, and appreciation. Knowing all the while that as we go through this epic planetary transformation, as we keep breathing more and more deeply, we have various boundaries of doom that we must cross where we are all initiated to feel afraid, to feel anxious. But now we step back and realize, no, this is all about ascension. The planet will not be destroyed. There are higher level beings that will not allow us to do that. And therefore, all of our fears are ultimately just projections of not really understanding what the universe is and that we are totally safe and protected thanks to positive angelic beings who have always been preventing the demonic from ever doing more than it is allowed to do by the choices that we make of our own free will. If we have yelling and arguing going on in our houses, we may very well attract negativity. We may very well attract negative elementals that would come into rotting mouse bodies or dirt on the floor. And now we know we can clean up, we can burn incense, we can smudge. We can do practical things like opening the windows, sweeping up, and doing all these things to be able to make our lives more harmonious, playing music, playing drums, even copper bowls in the house, flower pots. We talk about all this in the books. There's various things. Copper bowls is another great one. All of these different things come together in the learning of wisdom and the understanding and appreciation that you are part of a holographic reality where your body is not really what you are. You exist in the dirt and you exist in the glory. Parts of your identity, parts of your consciousness, and parts of how you actually think and how your mind actually functions exist in the dirt and in the good things like flowers around you, because you are not just stuck in one local environment. You are part of an everlasting, glorious, conscious universe. So as you breathe and keep going deeper and deeper, letting yourself drift away, your point of focus drifting away from the body, maybe you can start to feel your connection to the walls, to the floor, to the chair, to whatever is around you in the room you are in. Start to feel it as if you can touch it with your mind, as if it's a living, tangible substance, and then tune in to the dirt temporarily and notice how it doesn't feel good. Notice how it crunches these cords of light. Notice how it impacts how you feel. And that will guide you to those areas that need to be cleaned, those areas that need to be processed. Because again, this is a conscious universe. And the dirt is a part of you. The dirt and in your house, that is a part of your consciousness. Beautifying and improving your house, making it look lovely, adding new lighting features, adding some inexpensive things here and there you can put on the countertops. This is of incredible importance, not only for you, but for the planet as a whole. And as you keep on meditating, imagine this glorious living light swooping through your house, driving off any negative spirits, any negative energies, helping you with your cleaning so that it's done in joy and happiness, and bring you to a point where you really can feel the pulse of the ascension. You can feel the negative forces are not going to win this thing. They are not going to supersede love. They are not going to supersede truth. And we are all heading through a massive metamorphic transmutation, leading to the full dawning of the light body, the awakening of all of us as true compassionate masters, and the awareness of a whole new level of existence that the Law of One calls fourth density, which they promise us will be 100 times more harmonious than life is in our physical reality right now. They tell us this is only 1 year away, that it will happen by 2025, the first wave, and that the arrest of the deep state is vital to the completion of this process and the mass awakening that is resulting. And here is a line to really leave you with. As we awaken to the rot and the darkness and the smelly, disgusting things in the world, we want to clean them up. This is what is happening on the global level. This is the global hologram of cleaning your house. There is a house cleaning going on, and I expect that we are going to see very exciting things coming up long before November. And so let's take this energy that we've raised, and let's now send this loving, healing, warm, compassionate light to all these places that are in need of prayer and healing. Let's send that light to ease the fires of war, to calm them down, to bring us all back to a place of balance and stability, where the great plan moves forward and we know that everything is going to go exactly the way it is supposed to. Send your energy to these areas of conflict. Send your energy to all those in need of prayer and healing. Visualize the faces of those who have hurt you the most, and see if you are comfortable finding more forgiveness, more peace, more understanding, a way to just lovingly welcome them into your life once again, and however that works for you. And now take this energy and send it back to yourself. Surround yourself with love because you deserve it. You are the one infinite creator. This is as it was, as it is now, and as it always shall be, and nothing and no one can ever take that from you. And so it is. Now I'd like you to come back to the room, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. And here we are. I got 2 minutes to go. So let's do some comments. Yes, put your face in the snow, take a picture of the inverted U in the snow, and it will appear three-dimensional in the picture. Trick of the mind, photons, and world. Okay, that sounds awesome. Gitana Rosengal said that. I'm in a David Wilcock music video. This is cool. LOL. I know that about the snow. I was born and lived in the upper state New York near the Adirondacks. Bath salts inhaled, awaiting 5D now. Arrests are happening. Military so-called exercises are all over the world. Sleep on an earthing blanket every night connected to earth energy. He must think that forehead has special powers. What about Jesus the Christ? Revelation 2:939. Okay, well, some people do have fun insulting my forehead. The best one I've heard is that David's forehead goes all the way back to slavery. I thought that was funny. Listen to some Neville Goddard or Bentino and stop taking the Lord's name in vain by saying you don't have money. Well, I really don't have money. That is true. So I don't know how that's taking the Lord's name in vain. Lawrence Deek says, hi, David. Know you are loved by all of us. Big thanks for being here. All the best from Holland. I want to thank you guys for watching. Can I work with you when you want to get things going with Stavati? Yes. You can certainly send in applications to our website. We're going to be hiring lots and lots of people. So that is something that could happen, very much so. I'm just glad that I got off my duff and I did this show. I ended up really enjoying it. I love talking about elementals and, negative entities and all that kind of stuff. So I want to thank you, and we will see you soon. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.